What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto turned into a dog? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. The harsh battle against Naraku had been a hard-fought one, but it did not come without its heavy prices. Kikyo had been torn to pieces by the sadistic demon, who had used her own powers against her, killing the undead clay-bodied woman forever. Koga had his jewel shard removed during the attack before Naraku stabbed him repeatedly under the protection of his barrier before the wolf demon finally died from his injuries. Kagome had lost her spiritual powers shortly after the battle and was forced to leave the feudal era before she was stuck in this point in time forever. Moroku had given his life to kill Naraku by taking the creature with him into the wind tunnel after Kagura, Inuyasha and Sesshomaru had teamed up to break the barrier for the monk to get close enough to perform the fatal act. When the battle was finally over, only Inuyasha, Sango, Sesshomaru, Kalala, Shippo, and Kohaku after the jewel shard was removed and the boy was revived by Sesshomaru's sword Tenseiga. Kagura and Kana had been killed due to the fact that Naraku held both their hearts with him, thus resulting in both incarnations dying with him. As for the sacred jewel itself, it had finally been completed and in Inuyasha's hands, with Kagome telling him this was his chance to become full human. Inuyasha, however, did the exact opposite of what Kagome wanted and had become a full-fledged demon, but used the sacred jewel to make it so that he would still be in complete control of his demon blood, and wouldn't go berserk towards the people he cared about. Kagome had not been happy about Inuyasha's decision at all and even tried to sit him with the rosary for his disobedience. The result of such an action was for the said rosary to pulse once before breaking off into several dozen pieces. After that happened, Inuyasha grabbed Kagome by the throat, brought her face towards his, and growled some choice words in her ear that made her go albino white in the face. When the group made its way to the village, Inuyasha escorted a still upset Kagome to the time-traveling well. Then without another word, he shoved her in, and not so politely, where she could be in her time permanently to do whatever it was that whiny girls like her did. "So this is where we break off, I suppose," said Inuyasha, who was now almost as tall as Sesshomaru, and just as regal looking, having been given some new clothes that fit him. "For me, yes," said Sesshomaru, earning a confused look from Inuyasha and the others. "What do you mean?" said Sango, not understanding the meaning behind the demon lord's words. "I mean I'm leaving this world for another," said Sesshomaru, seeing the startled looks from the group and Rin grabbing his leg and hugging him as tears escaped her eyes. "Please don't go, Sesshomaru-sama. Don't leave, Rin," said Rin, grabbing his pant leg and squeezing with all her might so he would be able to leave. "You just can't go and leave without her brother. You have become the father that she has always wanted," said Inuyasha, looking at Sesshomaru, who patted Rin's head gently, knowing it may be for the last time. "I have to. I sense a disturbance in another dimension while we were fighting Naraku that calls to me." "Surely, you felt the disturbance?" said Sesshomaru, who saw his brother nod in agreement with him. "Yeah, I felt it, but it wasn't calling to me like it did you," said Inuyasha, wondering what the disturbance was. "I must go to this dimension in order to fix the growing imbalance there, and for me to do that I must leave here with only myself. You, my brother, will rule over the western lands in my place," said Sesshomaru, who saw the surprised look on Inuyasha's face yet again. "Are you sure?" said Inuyasha, knowing that unless his brother was positive with this, he wasn't going to accept this major responsibility. "Quite sure, little brother. You have been deprived of your demon home for far too long," said Sesshomaru, looking down to see Rin had let go of his leg and was slowly walking over to Inuyasha, who kneeled down to put the kid on his shoulder. "Don't worry, Rin, it will be fun spending time with your uncle Inuyasha," said Inuyasha, who saw the girl give a small smile. "What about Sango, Kalala, and Kohaku?" said Shippo, having jumped onto the opposite shoulder of Inuyasha, pointing to the trio next to them. "It's all right, Shippo, we can go back home and rebuild it so it won't," said Sango, who was caught off by Inuyasha raising his hand to tell her to stop. "No, the time for living in the past is over. As my first official act as the new lord of the Western Lands, I hereby invite you three to stay with me at my castle as my guests," said Inuyasha, seeing the three look at him like he was crazy. "Are you sure, Inuyasha? I doubt it would look good in the eyes of the other demons that you took in a family of demon slayers," said Sango, who was slightly nervous, but felt relieved that Inuyasha had given them all a home. "If they don't like my decision, then they can go to hell for all I care." Your happiness is what is most important to me now, said Inuyasha, walking up to Sango, who for some reason was blushing, as the demon lord got closer and wrapped a hand around her waist. So his demon instincts are turning him toward the demon slayer. Ironic, yet it's perfect at the same time, with the woman being a strong alpha female, and will no doubt be able to give birth to a powerful half-demon, thought Sesshomaru, smirking at the two, finding that there was more of his father in Inuyasha than he thought possible. Sesshomaru-sama, what about us? Said Jaken, holding on to Ah-un, who moaned at the sense of losing his master. You will serve my brother, as you have served me, and if I should one day return to find that either of you have betrayed him, I will kill you, said Sesshomaru, glaring fiercely at Jaken, who bowed in fear of his former master, while the two-headed dragon did the same. Why yes, my lord, said Jaken, knowing that this would take some getting used to. Before I head to the western lands, there are some friends of mine I want to take with us that helped us on our travels, said Inuyasha, knowing that his pack knew who the people he was talking about were. Then I shall take my leave. Until we one day meet again, my brother, said Sesshomaru, extending his hand, which Inuyasha took with pride and honor at the feeling of this feud between them was finally over. Take care, Sesshomaru. Hopefully you'll find a woman to call your mate while on this journey, said Inuyasha before using his left arm to touch his brother's damages one and channeled demon energy into it, making the arm regrow back. Thank you, brother. Goodbye, Rin, said Sesshomaru before walking away several steps and opened the rift in dimensions and entered it. Do you think Sesshomaru will return, Uncle Inuyasha? Said Rin, hopefully that the great demon lord would come back to her. In time, Rin. Until then, never let go of your memory of him, and remember that he loves you very much, said Inuyasha, who received a smile, kiss on the cheek, and a hug in that order from the little girl. With Sesshomaru, it had been nightfall when the former demon lord of the western lands walked through the forest that surrounded him after exiting the dimensional portal and wondered what the disturbance was that called to him. As he walked, he saw what appeared to be a village of some sort in the distance, but it was of such incredible size that it almost looked like a small city due to the walls being so high. On the gate, the symbol for leaf was etched upon it, and Sesshomaru became even more curious with each passing moment, feeling that the disturbance was coming from this place. It seems I am heading to the right location, thought Sesshomaru, walking into the village, ignoring the people staring at him and the women looking at him with heavy blushes. The place seemed to be celebrating some kind of festival tonight at the moment, involving something in regards to a fox, but what he couldn't make out from all the large amount of people around him. Sensing that the disturbance was farther away from the festival at the moment, Sesshomaru walked towards the direction until he came to what appeared to be a home for children without parents, or an orphanage, as it was apparently called from the sign above the building. As Sesshomaru wondering why the disturbance would be here, he heard sounds behind the building of something or possibly someone being hit hard, and with each hit he felt the disturbance grow within his mind. Leaping onto the roof of the building, Sesshomaru watched in confusion as an elderly lady with a cane hit a downed, and clearly defenseless child. Filthy demon, you have some nerve asking for more food when that rotten apple I gave you to last the day was more than generous. If it were up to me, I would lock you in a closet without food for months until you starved to death, and make you suffer for what you did 5 years ago, said the woman, who had lost her son, who was a shinobi to the Kyuubi when it attacked. Demon? This child? Even the little fox demon Shippo would have fought back by now, then take this abuse. Clearly this foolish old crane is mistaken in her judgment of this child, thought Sesshomaru, frowning slightly before descending to the ground silently behind the woman, who readied her cane for one more strike. After I'm done beating you with my cane, I'm going to kick you out and into the heavily crowded streets of people enjoying the festival. They deserve have a go at you for what you did to this village, said the old woman, bringing down her cane to strike the boy in the face. It never reached its target, as the woman's arm had been severed off right at the shoulder, spraying blood everywhere, and her scream that followed was cut short by a hand around her throat. The woman tried to break free from this unseen foe that was behind her, as she tried to let out a scream, but the smell of poison filled her nose, and before she knew it, her life ended. Throwing the body of the decaying dead woman aside some 20+ feet, Sesshomaru had now turned his full attention to the boy on the ground, who amazingly still conscious, yet in serious pain. The boy had blonde hair that looked like it came from the sun itself, and his face, while covered in dirt, has whisker-like birthmarks. When the boy opened his eyes, Sesshomaru felt his own eyes widen in shock at the intense shade of blue they were, and saw that this boy was suffering not unlike that of a half-demon back home. Just like his brother used to. Like Rin used to. Please don't hurt me, said the boy looking at the tall man while shaking slightly in fear of his attacker, making Sesshomaru snap back to reality of the situation before him. What is your name, little boy? Said Sesshomaru calmly, trying not to scare the boy while staring down at the frightened child. Naruto, sir. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. But most people just call me demon or monster, said Naruto, getting up slowly, as his instincts told him that this person before him was not in danger. They are arrogant and stupid. Do not listen to their poison-tipped words. Tell me, who runs this village of yours? Said Sesshomaru, looking down at the boy, seeing the wounds on his body were healing at an impressive rate. The Hokage is in charge of the village. I can show you tomorrow since I'm not exactly welcome outside during the festival and on my birthday, said Naruto, looking down with sadness in his eyes. This festival is on his birthday, yet he is outright hated for it for some unknown reason. Interesting. Even now, with his wounds healing, I sense demonic energy is healing him. Yet it's not his own, thought Sesshomaru, who saw the boy now heading back into the building before the demon lord stopped him. But not before sensing the wince that came from the contact. Please don't hurt me, said Naruto, hoping that wouldn't be the case with this man, who seemed to radiate power. I'm not here to hurt you, Naruto. If I wanted to hurt you, I would have simply let the old woman do that with her cane, and have done nothing to stop her. As for the fools in this festival, I will be your protector, and no one will dare lay so much as a finger on you out of fear of losing their hand, said Sesshomaru, who almost wished for such a thing to happen so he could show these humans just how strong he was. Okay, thank you. I'm afraid I don't know your name, sir, said Naruto nervously, hoping the man again wouldn't do anything to hurt him for his stupidity. My name is Sesshomaru. For now that is all you need to know, said Sesshomaru, who saw the boy nod his head before bowing politely at the demon lord. Again, thank you for saving me, Sesshomaru-sama, said Naruto, knowing that there was a good chance he wouldn't be alive right now if it weren't for this giant that stood before him. Sesshomaru nodded to the little child, pleased with the fact this boy did not take his act of heroism for granted, and showed him the respect he deserved. Picking up the said child, the demon lord put the boy on his shoulder so he could keep an eye on him at all times, and headed into the crowded streets while Naruto pointed which ways to go to get to the Hokage Tower. As the demon lord walked towards the tower, he smelled the growing hate coming off the humans they passed that were aimed at the boy, and one person even had the nerve to throw an empty sake bottle at them. A bottle that Sesshomaru got, broke in his hands, and then threw the shard in his hands back at the offending thrower, scarring the man for life. After that, everyone around them just looked at Naruto hatefully rather than try anything to hurt him, which was good for Sesshomaru because he wanted his energy reserved for the man responsible for the child riding on his shoulders' welfare. When the two finally got the Hokage Tower, Sesshomaru scowled at the group of guards wearing masks, and recognized them as shinobi, only different than the ones he saw back home. He sensed they were letting out a large amount of killer intent towards the boy on his shoulder, and only the demon lord's presence alone was shielding Naruto from it. I'm sorry, sir, but that thing is not permitted to enter the tower for security reasons, said an Anbu, wondering why the killer intent he and his comrades were hitting Naruto with wasn't affecting him. If you do not let me pass with this boy on my shoulders, I will see to it that both you and your shinobi comrades never leave this area alive, said Sesshomaru, unleashing his own killer intent, making the Anbu around him tense at the sheer strength of it. Naruto himself was slightly frightened, but remained mostly calm on the fact that this man's rage was not directed towards him, for once anyway. When Sesshomaru finally stopped unleashing killer intent, he walked past the nearly collapsed group of shinobi, and smirked at Naruto's action of waving bye to the shaken group. As they walked through the building, several people tried to stop, or rather tried to remove Naruto from Sesshomaru's shoulders, only to be sent flying into a nearby wall with the help of the back of Sesshomaru's hand. Hokage's office. The Sandaime sighed heavily, as he looked over the massive pile of paperwork he had been doing throughout the entire day, and yet he still had to get it all done. Though all things considered, it was a good night so far, since no reports of abuse aimed at Naruto had been reported yet, and that had been refreshing if only slightly. The majority of the Shinobi Council had been harassing him into either killing the boy or turning him into a weapon for Konoha, and the Sandaime was none of that. He was having a hard enough time dealing with them without the civilian council on his back on how they wanted the S-class law concerning Naruto removed. Until Naruto enters the academy, graduates, and becomes a genin, my power is divided between the two councils. I need someone to adopt the boy, but every time I get close the person soon changes his or her mind. Someone is breaking my law in secret, but there is no proof of that even if it is the only explanation, thought Sarutobi, suspecting it was one of the council members from either council. Wait, you can't go in there. Sir, said the secretary, only to be thrown through the doors and into the wall in the Hokage's office with the two guards outside his office to boot. I have neither the time nor the patience to be stalled by human garbage like you, wench, said Sesshomaru, walking into the room with Naruto of all children on his shoulder. Who are you? Said the Sandame, looking at the regal-looking figure, and thought he was a new feudal lord having come to power from another land. My name is Sesshomaru, and the reason I am here is to address you on the sheer cruelty of your village when it comes to this boy named Uzumaki Naruto. It was fortunate that I found him, as he was being beaten by the apparent overseer of your orphanage, and I could tell that it was not the first time that this has happened. Care to explain yourself to me about this? Leader of this shinobi village? Said Sesshomaru, walking towards the slightly nervous Hokage, who could see and sense that this man was no mere man, but something else entirely. I cannot. It's a village secret that concerns Naruto. If I told you, you would have to leave the boy outside, and promise not to tell him after I told you, said Sandame, wincing, as he saw the look of being betrayed in Naruto's eyes, and knew he would have to make this up to the boy somehow. That is unacceptable. Perhaps I should leave the boy here and ask the drunken villagers or shinobi down below in the village myself. I wonder what they would say under a loose tongue, said Sesshomaru, seeing the Hokage starting to sweat nervously, knowing that he could do that. You know why they hurt me, old man? Why they scorn me? Why they always kick me out of places to eat, when I try to get clothing, and why they tell their kids my age to stay away from me, said Naruto, who couldn't help but feel that the man he thought of as a grandfather had just stabbed him in the back, and it wasn't sitting well in his heart right now. Naruto, said the Sandame, who was silenced from speaking any excuse he could give by the glaring hatefully by Sesshomaru. No more excuses, old village leader. Tell us now, or I'll kill you, and then I'll find the information concerning this boy myself in another manner that is more fitting of a demon lord, said Sesshomaru, turning his eyes into a demon red while covering the room in demon energy. Demon lord, said Sarutobi, who thought he was going to have a heart attack from just those two words alone. Naruto himself was in complete shock at this news, and that anyone, much less a demon lord like Sesshomaru, claimed to be had even tried to save him. Yes, I came here because I sensed a disturbance in your village, and the source of it was the abuse this boy was receiving. I also noticed that as his wounds healed, his body was releasing a significant amount of thick demonic energy, and that I sensed it was not a part of him naturally, said Sesshomaru, wanted a good explanation from the Hokage. I had hoped I wouldn't have to say anything to Naruto, much less another demon lord, but seeing as how I have been given no choice, I will tell you, and I hope, Naruto, that you will forgive me, said Sandame, who saw the boy was so serious at the moment that all the kid needed was the Hokage hat, and he would look just like the Yondaime. Biting back the bitter memory of his late successor dying, the Sandame told Naruto and Sesshomaru everything concerning the Kyuubi being sealed and the boy. How the fourth Hokage wanted the boy to be seen as a hero while the village in its stupidity paid no heed to the man's dying wish. How the Sandame made an S-class law in order to prevent the younger generation from learning of the Kyuubi and trying to give Naruto a normal life. So that's why they hate me. Wait, do you know who my parents were? Said Naruto, who looked at the old man hopefully, but the man shook his head and tried to ignore the cold yet fearsome face of Sesshomaru, looking at him with a knowing look that told the old Hokage that the demon lord knew he was lying. Do you have a picture of the Yondaime? Said Sesshomaru, his instincts on this matter suspecting something concerning this boy getting stronger with the lie the current Hokage just told. To his credit, the Sandame didn't start sweating until after he nodded, and turned around to pry a small picture up from the wall behind his seat. He gave it to Sesshomaru, who saw the reason why the Hokage had lied, but felt that it was foolish all the same. Giving the picture to Naruto, he saw the boy looking at the picture curiously, almost like a fox would when seeing its reflection in the water, and within moments of seeing the picture Naruto looked up at the Hokage with a fierce scowl on his face. The Yondaime is my father, isn't he? said Naruto in a serious tone that made the old man noticeably wince at those words that were just as bad as when Enma scolded him for letting Orochimaru get away. Yes, Naruto, he was your father. I didn't want to tell you until you were old enough to understand why he did what he did, but my hand has been forced, said the Sandaime, seeing the look of betrayal in Naruto's eyes and the shadow of something akin to hate dwelling in them as well. What of his mother? Said Sesshomaru, who saw the Sandaime wince even further at that, and knew something was up when the man didn't give a straight answer before making the man talk by releasing a small amount of demonic killer intent. She's alive, said the Sandaime weakly, and saw the look of surprise from Naruto at the thought of his mother being alive. She's alive, yet Naruto was forced to stay in the orphanage? That doesn't sound like a loving mother to me, said Sesshomaru, having already deduced what happened after the woman heard the news. She's currently living at the Namikaze estates under the Namikaze name, as she doesn't want anything to do with Naruto, and told me so herself when she had heard of what her husband did to her son. I gave him her maiden name so the Yondaime's enemies outside of the village would not try to attack the boy, said Sandaime, seeing the large and still growing amount of anger in the boy flaring around him with his eyes flashing red for a few seconds. So his mother plays the tragic widow while her son is considered the enemy and hated demon of this village. Didn't you inform her of his dying wish, or did you neglect to tell her that at all? Said Sesshomaru, clearly displeased with the old man's incompetency. I told her that Minato wanted everyone to see their son as a hero for holding the Kyuubi, but she refused. She said she wanted nothing to do with Naruto and even threatened to kill the boy herself if he ever came to the estate, said Sarutobi, wishing he didn't have to speak such harsh truths in front of Naruto, knowing it was infuriating him even more. Sesshomaru noticed it too and sensed the powerful demonic energy, or chakra, as these shinobi called, becoming visible around Naruto. If the boy learned how to control this power, it would make him a force to be reckoned with to anyone that stood in his way. You will take us to the Namikaze estate. We are going to have a little talk with this so-called mother of Naruto's here, said Sesshomaru, who saw Naruto now look up at him in surprise before nodding, and the demon lord could have sworn he saw a hint of bloodlust in the boy's eyes. The Sandaime shivered at the word talk when Sesshomaru spoke it and knew that this night was not going to be pleasant for him. Especially when the council got wind of the news that Naruto now knows of Kyuubi's existence inside of him, and would no doubt blame this on Naruto tomorrow before lunch. I'm getting too old for this shit, thought Sarutobi, who walked out the door with the demon lord following and Naruto once more on his shoulder. Outside the Namikaze estate 20 minutes later, Sarutobi knocked politely on the door with Sesshomaru and Naruto off to the side out of eyesight range, waiting to see how this woman would be like around the Hokage. Within a few minutes of knocking, the door opened, and a young woman with red hair stepped out to greet the Hokage. Hello Kushina. I hope to talk to you about a familiar matter and hope out of respect for your late husband that you would reconsider taking in Naruto, said Sarutobi, seeing the woman's face become as cold as ice and as hard as steel. My answer is still no, Sarutobi. I refuse to embrace that demon as my son. As far as I'm concerned, my son died the day my husband died sealing the Kyuubi. I will never allow that demon into this house as long as I draw breath, said Kushina, coldly, making the old man sigh in defeat, as if she had just failed a secret test given to her, and from the way he looked over to his right it seemed she had been caught saying the wrong thing. Kushina followed his line of sight and saw a handsome young man with the very boy she spoke of right next to him, looking at her with a great deal of hate in his eyes. She turned to the old man, who had promised never to tell Naruto anything about his parentage, and then back at the boy whose hands were turned into balled fists. Acting quickly, Kushina drew a sword before leaping into the air, ready to bring her weapon down upon the vile creature that robbed her of a loving husband and son that she wanted to call her mother. Foolish wench, thought Sesshomaru, as he would not tolerate the woman's stupidity, as he summoned his energy whip, and with the precision only a demon lord of his caliber could produce, sliced the blade in half. Who are you? What business do you have interfering in matters that do not concern you? Said Kushina, now a little bit over 10 feet away from the two. My name is Sesshomaru. My concern in this matter is this boy, and I will not allow him to come to harm. I sense his very death will upset the very balance of your world even further if it is allowed to continue, said Sesshomaru, putting a protective hand over the blonde-haired child, who attached himself to the demon lord's leg to show his sign of affection. It reminded Sesshomaru of Rin and how she would do that. Sesshomaru is a demon lord, Kushina. He came into my office with Naruto and made me tell him along with the boy everything from the Kyuubi sealed inside of him, down to the boy's parentage, said Sarutobi, seeing the look of shock on Kushina's face. He knows, said Kushina, looking at Naruto, who looked at her with hate-filled eyes of betrayal and rage that she only saw in her husband during the last war. That's right, mother. Of course, since I'm a demon as everyone calls me, then that means I have no right to call you that anymore, said Naruto, his eyes flashing red once again for a solid second before turning back to normal. You couldn't even honor your husband's dying wish, and yet you still hold his last name like it was some form of privilege to be his wife turned widow. You are a disgusting and wretched human, who is unworthy to be called anything but that of filth, said Sesshomaru, cracking his claws in his right hand, as if ready to strike the woman for her sins against her own son. My son is dead, said Kushina, jumping back at Naruto again, only she started making hand signs for a fire jutsu while Sesshomaru unsheathed Tokijin and stood still. Get behind me, Naruto, said Sesshomaru, holding the blade lightly in his one hand. Yes, Sesshomaru-sama, said Naruto, who took 2 steps to hide behind the demon lord. Fire style. Dragon flame jutsu, said Kushina, shooting the fire right at Sesshomaru, who raised his sword in a guard position before it glowed and repelled the attack like it was nothing. Is that all you shinobi can do? I expected more in that attack from the so-called wife of the Yondaime, said Sesshomaru, clearly unimpressed with this woman, though it was hard to judge given the fact he was a lot stronger than her. I'll kill you, said Kushina, getting further enraged that this demon would enter Konoha and insult her skills when she had been in a highly trained Enbu back in Whirlpool as well as in Konoha during the last war. Save your weak threats for someone even weaker, said Sesshomaru before placing his sword's point in the ground and sent a wave of demonic energy at her that shook the ground, sending the woman flying back into the wall of the estate, leaving a large imprint upon impact. Sesshomaru-sama, please do not kill her. If you do, the council will take it out on Naruto if you do, said Sandaime, knowing that the loss of the Yondaime's wife would cause a riot and he doubted he would have enough shinobi to put it down. I'm not going to kill her, said Sesshomaru calmly, now in front of the downed woman with Naruto right beside him. That's a relief, thought Sarutobi, not knowing if he could beat the demon lord himself, whether it was now or in his prime. Naruto is going to do it himself, said Sesshomaru, looking at the boy, who looked back at the demon lord in shock at this news, as did Kushina with fear in her eyes. What? Said Kushina and Sarutobi at the same time, not believing Sesshomaru just said those words, while Naruto remained silent from the surprise. You heard me. Naruto is going to end the life of this woman, and with this very sword in my hand, said Sesshomaru, knowing that while the evil in this sword was powerful, he had this strange feeling that Naruto could handle it because of the demon sealed inside of him. You can't. If you do, the council will, said Kushina, only to be fiercely backhanded hard by Sesshomaru with his free hand, leaving an immediate bruise to her face and claw marks when the tips of his claws made contact. Your council will do nothing because I will see to it that they do exactly that, nothing. Now Naruto, take this sword in your hands. Don't be afraid, said Sesshomaru, giving the sword over to Naruto, who found it very heavy, and could barely lift it with his own tiny hands. That, and he was low on strength from the lack of food in his stomach. If I try to stop this, then Sesshomaru may try to kill me, and if I do nothing I lose a part of Naruto to the ways of the demon. Either way I lose, thought Sandaime, knowing that if Sesshomaru wanted to, he could transform into his demonic form, and destroy all of Konoha easily. The blade is heavy, Sesshomaru-sama, said Naruto, feeling the power of the sword in his hands giving him a weird feeling. It's supposed to be due to sword being made from demon teeth, which why it generates the large amount of power inside of it. The fact that you can even lift it off the ground is impressive for someone so young and malnourished, said Sesshomaru, who felt a sense of pride at seeing this boy's eyes fill with joy at being given praise by him. Really? Wow, you must be really strong to wield a sword with this much power, said Naruto, looking at Sesshomaru with awe at the demon lord's greatness. Naruto's more right than he knows. I sense that sword is really powerful, and if I were to guess in terms of power, it could have easily killed Orochimaru, and if in the right hands could vanquish the growing evil throughout the elemental countries, thought Sarutobi as he looked on at Naruto struggling to hold the blade steady in his hands. Naruto, sweetie, you wouldn't hurt your own mother, would you? I brought you into this world, honey, and I imagine your father would be most displeased if you killed me, said Kushina, trying to sway her son's hands from using the sword to end her life. Just like you would be displeased in you abandoning me right after I was born and had the Kyuubi sealed inside of me? Said Naruto, feeling the anger and the hate he felt inside for this woman that was his mother, who had left him to rot in the orphanage with the cruel woman and the other adults there. The boys unknowingly pushing back the corrupting power of Tokijin with the help of the fox demon inside of him. If Naruto could learn to fully master and control this demon fox's power, he could ascend to become a demon lord himself. Unfortunately, for that to happen, I would have to stay in this filthy shinobi village to make sure his progress is not usurped by the majority of people that despise him, thought Sesshomaru, knowing that the people in this place would do anything in their power to cripple the boy, whether it was physically or mentally. You know what I wished for when I was alone thinking my family was dead? I wished for just that, a family. I wished for a mother and a father to call my own that would love me for who I am to no end. Now that I see you, I don't want a mother like you in my life. I just want you to die, said Naruto, his eyes now staying blood red, his canine teeth now becoming pointer, and his grip on Tokijin becoming steadier. Incredible. I have not sensed such demonic energy like this in all my time alive. This fox demon sealed inside Naruto must be truly power indeed, thought Sesshomaru, looking on with interest, as the boy raised Tokijin up, shaking slightly, and before Kushina could scream, the blade came down, ending her life instantly. Sesshomaru-sama, I'm tired. I think I'm going to take a nap now, said Naruto, who had felt the drain of using the demonic chakra, and immediately passed out, falling down hard onto the wooden floor outside of the Namikaze estate. You did very well, Naruto, said Sesshomaru, slightly surprised at himself for saying the words with such praise and affection like a father would give a son. Did he care for Naruto, as if the boy were his own? It's a shame she never saw Naruto as her son. Her grief over Minato was so scarring that it blinded her to what she had that was a part of him and her, said Sarutobi, as his eyes were filled with sorrow for the loss of a dear friend. Indeed. However, now is not the time to dwell on such things, old man. It is getting late and the boy needs his rest. Since that orphanage is out of the question, I suggest the boy sleep here tonight so we can address some things you have yet to discuss with me. Like this council of yours that seems to have more power over the village than you do, said Sesshomaru, giving the old man a piercing gaze while the Sandame cleared his throat somewhat nervously before becoming more serious looking. Very well. It can't be helped. This is Naruto's inheritance after all, and I can't deny it from him any longer, said the Sandame, walking into the large home with Sesshomaru carrying the tired boy after putting Tokijin away. When Naruto was put in a bed that was originally planned for him when Minato found out he was going to be a father, the third Hokage and Sesshomaru were both in the living room sitting in the plush furniture. Sesshomaru himself found the material to be strangely comfortable to him and felt this place was worthy of a former demon lord of the western lands. Sesshomaru-sama, I feel that in order to understand what happened, you need to know that I did everything in my power as the newly reinstated Hokage to protect Naruto from harm. The problem started several weeks before I was officially reinstated as Hokage, that the council had complete control over everything except for its military, that is its shinobi forces. The Yondaime had made several enemies on the council due to his policies that supported change within the village in order to evolve with the times rather than stick with the harsher traditions set in place during the days of the Shodan. When I came back reinstated, the council was bickering over what to do with Naruto, which was good thing because had they come to a conclusion during their time in power, I would have been unable to stop them from carrying it out. Some people called for the boy's death, not trusting the seal or out of their own hatred for the boy's father for being so much more powerful and stronger than them. Others wanted to make Naruto into a mindless weapon that would be loyal only to them, and when he was no longer needed, they would kill him and leave it at that without any regard for the boy's life at all, said Sandame before he further explained that Kushina wanted nothing to do with the boy and the only possible solution he could get them all to agree on was to put Naruto in the orphanage under his mother's maiden name with an Enbu team guarding him from harm from the adults that knew of the fox being sealed in Naruto. If Naruto had these Enbu teams watching him as you claim they did, then where are they now, and why weren't they watching Naruto tonight when he was being beaten by that old wench with a cane? Said Sesshomaru, though they already suspected the shinobi had left their assignment for their own selfish reasons. Minato's student Hitaki Kakashi was in charge of the detail that was guarding Naruto today into the night. I'll speak to him tomorrow in front of the council when I set up a meeting with them tomorrow in order to catch them all off guard by your intervention," said Sarutobi, smiling at the demon lord, who nodded in approval of the action. They were going to let Naruto's enemies sleep peacefully tonight, thinking they had won, since tomorrow they would soon learn that they have lost. The next day, Naruto awoke finding himself in a nice warm bed rather than wet moldy rags he found in the laundry room when he was back in the orphanage. Groggily he got off the bed, much to his body's protest, and walked aimless out of the room, following the steps down the flight of stairs, finding there were more steps than he remembered. His stomach had been killing him for some food worse than it had yesterday, and if it was one thing he couldn't ignore, that was it. Naruto could only hope that he could secretly get some food in his stomach before the old hag had learned of him being awake and tried to stop him from eating. When he made his way into the seemingly larger kitchen, Naruto was surprised when he saw the sweet ramen stand girl making him breakfast. She looked at him with a warm smile that he imagined came from having a big sister, or at least something close to that anyway. "Hello Naruto-kun, how are you feeling?" said Ayame, not surprised at seeing him look so surprised, since she suspected he thought that what happened yesterday was some kind of dream. "Fine," said Naruto happily before looking around after the reality of what had happened yesterday set in, and he started looking around for the demon lord, who rescued him last night. "Who are you looking for, Naruto?" said Ayame, confused, but slightly humored by his actions of looking around like he lost something. "Where is Sesshomaru-sama?" said Naruto, wondering where the man that had saved him went. "Oh, you mean the handsome young man that looked like a daimyo? He went to the Hokage's office to sign some papers concerning his residency in Konoha, and if what I suspect is true, he's going to adopt you as well," said Ayame, though she wasn't really sure about the latter part of what she told Naruto, but she always preferred being an optimist. "Really? You mean Sesshomaru-sama wants to be my dad? Yatta, I'm going to have a dad," said Naruto, dancing around making Ayame laugh before she put the food on the table for Naruto to eat, which he ate within a time span of a minute. "Wow, that has to be a record," said Ayame, amazed that the boy just sucked up her food like there was no tomorrow. "Could I have some more? Please Ayame-chan," said Naruto, holding out his plate with the hope of her filling his still hungry stomach. It may not have been ramen like she gave him at the stand, but they say hunger was the best spice, and he had a ton of it ready to mix with the incredibly good food she made him. "Sure, Hokage-sama sent me here to make sure you got a full tummy, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I just gave you a single helping," said Ayame, making more ham and eggs that she gave him earlier. "Thanks Ayame-chan," said Naruto, kicking his little feet slightly while he was sitting in the chair with a very happy grin on his face that made Ayame smile warmly at him while scowling inside at the fools who would seek to hurt this innocent child. "Hokage's office. I assume you know that once you sign these papers you will be declared Naruto's father, correct?" said the Sandame, looking at Sesshomaru, who simply nodded and signed his mark on the papers. "As the boy's legal guardian, I will help him master the powers from the demon fox as well as give him his father's last name," said Sesshomaru, finishing his signature on the original and copy of the adoption papers. "The latter of the two I must strongly urge you to reconsider. If the shinobi villages like Iwa or his other enemies in the elemental countries discovers that the Yondaime has a legacy, they will do everything in their power to kill him," said the Sandame, taking the original paper while Sesshomaru took the copy. "No more than what the people in your village have already done to the boy already, if his malnourishment is any indication," said Sesshomaru, who saw the old man wince once again under such a counter by the demon lord. "I regret that, I truly do. I have let both the civilian and shinobi council push me around on this matter for too long. The Yondaime entrusted me to protect Naruto no matter what I had to do, and I intend to do just that during this meeting in a few hours," said Sarutobi, who was going to remind these fools on both councils why he was the third Hokage. "Good. As for my decision concerning Naruto's last name, it still stands, and before you even think to remind me of your late successor's enemies, let me remind you just who I am," said Sesshomaru, showering the third Hokage in an incredible blast of killer intent that made the old man clutch his chest, almost ready to have a heart attack. "By Kami, such incredible power. It makes Orochimaru seem like a 5-year-old having mild child temper tantrum," thought the Sandame, finding his ability to breath was much more difficult than before. "I am the Demon Lord and former ruler of the Western lands. I fear no one," said Sesshomaru before simply stopping, as if it was as easy as turning off a light switch, and that in itself scared the third Hokage the most. His power may rival Kyuubi's, and all the more reason to do as he says, considering there is no possible way to seal him inside an object or child, thought Sandaime, knowing that there was no one other than himself right now, who loved this village to such a point that they would die for it. You need not fear the enemies of the Yondaime coming after his son Hokage. What you should fear is my fury if you fail Naruto and not allowing him to become stronger, said Sesshomaru before he was covered in large ball of energy and teleported out of the office back to the Namikaze estate. I'm getting too old for this shit, said the Sandaime, wondering if it was not too late to find another successor he could trust with this title. Namikaze estate. Ayame couldn't believe she just saw Naruto finish eating over 20 large helpings of food, and only now was he starting to feel full in his stomach. Seriously, the kid was an eating machine that put the Akamichi clan to shame. Though it wasn't really a surprise due to the fact that he was never really fed during the time spent in the orphanage, and there was no restaurant other than her father's that would serve him. Sure, they gave him a few of their bowls on the house, but it only went so far, as he was only allowed out 2 days out of the whole week by that bitch that ran the orphanage, and it didn't take a skilled shinobi to see he was not properly being fed. Naruto had never felt better in all the years he had been alive, with a stomach full of food and with a person he knew didn't hate him. It was bliss. It got even better for him when Sesshomaru appeared in a ball of energy that made Ayame faint, and Naruto looking at him in awe at his power. That was incredible. Can you teach me to do that too? Said Naruto, eager to learn from the Demon Lord if he was willing to teach. We'll see, Naruto. There is still much I don't know about the Kyuubi inside of you, or if there are any problems that may arise from such teachings. But do not worry, as there will be plenty of time for that, as I just came back from the Hokage's office to tell you that you are now officially my son, and while that is in full effect, you will be given your father's last name, and you will learn from the scrolls he left behind in this estate, said Sesshomaru, who was going to train Naruto for as long the boy could stand. You're really my dad now? Yes, I really have a father now, said Naruto, dancing around yet again to this news, and despite himself, Sesshomaru found it quite funny, but he dared not show it outside of a small smirk that came across his face. I wonder if this is how that little fox demon Shippo reacted when he acted happy around Inuyasha, thought Sesshomaru, already seeing fox-like traits in the boy popping up. I can't wait to start training, said Naruto before seeing Ayame was still down and out of it from her shock at seeing the way Sesshomaru entered the room. Don't let this go to your head, Naruto. I'm not going to pamper you when it comes to training you to hone your skills. I will be harsh as possible to ensure that you have no equal in or out of Konoha. As my newly declared son, I expect complete perfection of each skill that you try to master, said Sesshomaru, getting serious, knowing that for the boy to get stronger, he needed to take this seriously and work hard like everything else in life. Don't worry, father, I won't fail you. I want to be strong like you. If it means training my guts out is the way to go, then I'll do it, and I'll give it my all, said Naruto, looking up from Ayame to Sesshomaru with serious blue eyes that proved to the Demon Lord that Naruto was indeed serious about his training. Good. Now let's take this girl back home and then head to the Hokage Tower. We have a meeting to get to that concerns this village's past behavior with you, said Sesshomaru, who picked up the girl and teleported to the three of them to the ramen stand. Hokage Tower meeting room. The Sandaime had to use his old-school poker face to keep himself from smiling at the sight of the suspicious civilian and shinobi council members seated before him. They had been summoned as a whole to deal with a situation that could not be discussed until all parties concerning this matter were present. After the two councils arrived, the Anbu teams of shinobi assigned to protect Naruto had gathered, as well from those that did their jobs and those that did not. As it stood, only 2 more people were left for this matter to come to order. Speak of the devil, and considering who I'm looking at, it is possibly more literal than I think, thought Sarutobi, as the large ball of energy appeared and then vanished, revealing Sesshomaru to everyone before him with Naruto standing right beside him. Hokage-sama, could you please tell this man of noble blood to take that thing beside him outside, said a civilian council member, glaring daggers at Naruto, who in return glared back, finding his instincts were helping him call out the Kyuubi's power, as he could start to feel his eyes change from blue to the red slit ones of the fox himself. You would your best to watch your tongue, councilman, or you will find it removed from your mouth and hanged by it outside this tower, said Sesshomaru, taking in the smells of the people in the room, though the women with the tattoos caught his interest. He had only been told so much about the various clans with bloodline limits, which he deduced was watered-down demon blood that was more adaptable to humans. "You dare insult me, a councilman? I could have you arrested for such actions, noble blood or not," said the man, who was in his late 50s and part of the merchant section of Konoha. "Arrest me then if you can. All those you send against me will die horribly before I come to kill you." "Fool," said Sesshomaru, his face calm like the eye of a storm before the said storm unleashed itself upon the helpless masses. The councilman hesitated, as he was unable to read the man's face, and could not tell if the man was bluffing or if he was really that powerful. The shinobi in the room could probably handle the tall figure, but even they seemed wary of him, and even the shinobi councilwoman Inuzuka Sume seemed highly nervous for some reason. The loyal dog beside the Inuzuka's feet whined in fear and hid its face away from the very presence of Sesshomaru while telling its owner not to oppose him. Sume herself was not going to disagree with that, having sensed the familiarity between her clan and this person here, who could be considered close to God amongst dogs. This figure's very presence in itself had nearly compelled the Inuzuka clan head to get on the ground and kneel before him as a sign of submission. As much as I would like to see Sesshomaru-sama's skills put to the test against a team of our strongest shinobi, now is not the time. It has come to my attention, as of yesterday, that certain individuals have sought out the means to find loopholes around the law that concerns Uzumaki Naruto, said Sandaime, who paused from continuing when he saw Naruto scowl at being addressed with his mother's last name. "There are certain people in this room that have not been honoring the Yondaime's dying wish to see this boy as a hero. As such, I took it upon myself to adopt the boy as my own son," said Sesshomaru, seeing the outrage and outpour of opposition to such a thing. "Hokage-sama, you cannot allow this man to adopt the demon. You must rescind the adoption at once," said another civilian councilwoman with pink hair and nearly flat chest that made her more man-looking than woman. "I cannot. Sesshomaru-sama has met the requirements needed to adopt Naruto, and I have already seen a demonstration of his power yesterday when he fought Namikaze Uzumaki Kushina last night. I have no doubt that this man is more than qualified to protect Naruto from the dangers that linger both inside and out of the village," said the Sandaime, who once more received protests on this matter. "Then we demand that Kushina come here to fight the adoption, seeing as how she is the demo boy's mother," said Kaharu, seeing the piercing look directed at her by Sesshomaru and made her spine shiver. "That's not possible," said Sarutobi, taking his pipe into his mouth and blowing out the smoke from it. "And why is that, Hokage-sama?" said Aburame Shibi, who had felt his bugs going crazy under the power they were sensing from Sesshomaru, and further told him that this man was somehow related to the Inuzuka clan. "She's dead. Naruto killed her," said Sesshomaru, seeing and sensing the shocked looks in the room, while all eyes now turned to Naruto, who nodded in confirmation at this news. "Quickly, arrest the demon for the murder of the Yondaime's wife and prepare for his public execution," said Homura, pointing at Naruto with the shinobi that had been called and now holding multiple weapons should the boy resist. "Take one step forward and you will all die," said Sesshomaru, taking notice of the more reluctant shinobi pulling out their weapons before releasing his own killer intent, freezing them all in place. "Stop this stupidity at once. I am the Hokage, and as the Hokage I order all shinobi in the room to stand down, right now. No one is going to kill Naruto or raise their hand against him for defending himself against the very mother that shunned him when she tried to kill him in the first place," said Sarutobi, as he glared at his former teammates, who had now looked away, but lost none of their hate for the boy. "She got what she deserved," said Naruto without emotion, getting everyone's eyes on him again. "What did you say, demon?" said Uchiha Fugaku, who had been trying for some time to secretly seduce Kushina so he could bed her, and take a peek at the Namikaze scrolls to learn the Yondaime's secret to his Higher-Ishin jutsu to turn it into a skill for the Uchiha clan to have to make them invincible. "You will address me as Namikaze Naruto, the son of the Yondaime," said Naruto, his body slowly letting out a small amount of the fox's charka as his rage grew. "I will do no such thing," said Fugaku, his Sharingan eyes activating and seemed ready to strike Naruto if it weren't for the deep demonic growl coming from Sesshomaru's throat. "It doesn't matter whether any of you do or not. As of today, Sesshomaru is giving Naruto his father's last name as his first act as the boy's adopted father and guardian." From now on, Naruto will be staying at the Namikaze estate. He will receive everything in it that is by right, and everyone who has a problem with it must take it up with Sesshomaru, said the third Hokage, as he decided not to tell them about the other decision Sesshomaru made concerning Naruto, having already seen the hesitant looks from the councilmen in the room, who wished to object to this news. Have you lost your mind, Hokage-sama? Can't you see that these two demons are trying to manipulate you into giving into their demands? Give the order to kill the boy now, said Fugaku, getting angry over the fact that the Namikaze had a shot of becoming even more powerful than before. Speaking of orders, I believe the Hokage would like to address the shinobi in the room that were a part of Naruto's security detail, said Sesshomaru, smirking again, making the council members of both civilian and shinobi shiver in fear of that smirk. Yes, thank you, Sesshomaru-sama. Last night, upon the arrival of our distinguished guest, Naruto was attacked by the old woman, who ran the orphanage, and proceeded to hit the boy with her cane. What I find hard to believe is that the Anbu detail under the charge of the Yondaime's own student did not intervene at all to save the child from harm. I want Anbu Captain Hitaki Kakashi to step forward and explain his actions as well as those of his teammates, said the Sandame, glaring at the dog-masked Anbu, who now stepped forward. Hokage-sama, I cannot condone what I or my team did, nor can I properly apologize for our actions in neglecting our duties, but I did not know that Naruto was my sensei's son, said Kakashi, who soon felt a wave of killing intent flowing off Naruto. Let me get this straight, Hitaki-san. You are only sorry now, after you learned that I was your sensei's son? Does that mean that if I was just some child from a non-important or nobody family-tuned orphan, you would have continued to neglect guarding me? Perhaps you would have tried to kill me yourself, give the chance? Said Naruto, as his very words came out with venomous hate, and all the anger inside of him refused to stay down. I never said that, said Kakashi, though that fact didn't seem to calm Naruto at all. But you weren't denying it either, Kakashi, said the Sandame, frowning at the Anbu, who did not bother giving a response back. This cannot go on any longer. This shinobi and his team must pay Naruto back one way or another. Refusing to do so will mean their deaths, said Sesshomaru, his gaze focused on Kakashi, who was sweating slightly under the mask at the invisible weight that was now pressed against him by the demon lord. Agreed. Kakashi, you are no longer an Anbu. You shall receive no pay for the rest of the month unless you are assigned a high-class mission. You will also be given the rank of Junin in order to perform other missions that are not Anbu-related, said Sarutobi, who saw Kakashi wince at that and remove his dog mask before handing it over to the third Hokage. Hokage-sama, please be reasonable. Sure, Kakashi is at fault here, but do you have to punish all the Anbu watching the kid, said Yuago, who like her fellow Anbu had actually done their job in watching over the kid. I wish I could, Neko-san, but unless I know just who was doing their job and who was not, I can't let anyone in the Anbu division go unpunished, said Sarutobi before eyeing Sesshomaru for a possible solution. I can help with finding the guilty from the innocent, said Sesshomaru, turning his gaze to the Anbu, making some of their insides squirm under his powerful presence. What do you suggest, Sesshomaru-sama? Said Hiashi, who was very tempted to use his Byakugan right now to see the man's Charka network, finding the man to be unnatural in every aspect of the word. Every Anbu that was involved in Naruto's protection is in your office, and if I asked them whether or not they did their job, I will be able to sense if they are being truthful or they are lying, said Sesshomaru, since any demon with superior senses like his could tell if someone was lying or being truthful. Sense it? You mean you have a bloodline limit? Said Danzo, finally speaking after all this time while wondering how to get a sample of the man's genetic tissue for research purposes. No, what I have is far superior to your weak human blood, said Sesshomaru, finding some satisfaction in demeaning these humans before him. What do you mean to say exactly, Sesshomaru-sama? Said Shibi, wondering what the man meant. I thought at this point it would have been clear to you all by now. I am a demon lord, said Sesshomaru, seeing the looks of fear now hitting each and every one of the council members. What? Said Fugaku, leaping out of his chair, drawing his sword while several shinobi redrew their weapons. Sesshomaru is a demon lord, said the Sandame calmly, as if it was the most common thing in the world. You knew? Said Kaharu, glaring at her old teammate. I learned about his status yesterday when he arrived, said Sarutobi, who saw Hiashi had now stood up while activating his bloodline and gasped before sitting down in awe at the demon's chakra network. Simply because there was no network for him to see, as Sesshomaru's chakra was so thick that it was like looking into a crimson ocean's depth that had no end. I see that the disturbance in this dimension is far more unbalanced than I thought, said Sesshomaru, cracking his right hand as his claws further extended. Enough. There will no fighting here. Fugaku-san, sit down. If Sesshomaru-sama wanted us all dead, he could have just transformed into his true demon form and wiped Konoha out last night, said the Sandame, seeing the Nara clan head nod his along with his two partners, who both agreed with the old Hokage, knowing that what he just said was true, though they were still nervous at the thought of facing another demon lord. What your Hokage tells you is true. While I am far more powerful than any of you in this room in my current form, my true demon form is by far more powerful than you could imagine, said Sesshomaru, making everyone in the room shiver at his words. When Sesshomaru-sama signed the adoption papers for Naruto, he also signed papers to allow himself to become a citizen of Konoha, and protect the village from harm so long as Naruto is alive, said the third Hokage, who let this information sink into his fellow council members' heads before deciding to speak. The Inuzuka clan will be the first to honor Sesshomaru-sama's citizenship to Konoha, said Inuzuka Sume, being the first to speak, rising from her seat as she did while bowing her head at a slight angle that told Sesshomaru that she was submitting to him like a dog does to its master. The Hyuga clan will also recognize and honor Sesshomaru-sama's citizenship to live in Konoha, said Hiyashi, looking at Sesshomaru with a look that told the demon lord that the Hyuga wished to speak with him later about something important. The Aburame clan finds that it is only logical that Sesshomaru-sama's citizenship to the Leaf be honored and has our support as well, said Shibi, rising from his seat and nodding towards the demon lord to what would be considered as a sign of respect. I think I can speak for my lazy and large friends here when I say that our three clans will honor Sesshomaru's citizenship, said Inoichi, who looked at his two teammates, who nodded with the Nara lazily mumbling something along the lines of, troublesome. I heard that, Nara, said Sesshomaru, making the man go pale, and forgot that the demon lord had good hearing. The Uchiha clan will not honor this demon lord's citizenship and is not welcome at the Uchiha district, nor is his adopted demon son, said Fugaku, scowling heavily at the demon lord with his Sharingan eyes still active, only to have them be returned to normal forcibly by a quick and sudden burst of demonic killer intent directed solely at him from Sesshomaru, who he could have sworn had his eyes flash red just briefly before returning to normal. I trust that the rest of the Shinobi Council will not follow Uchiha-san's example and will quietly agree to honor Sesshomaru-sama's citizenship to Konoha, knowing what strength he brings to the Leaf Village, said the Sandame, eyeing Danzo and his two teammates carefully, as they nodded reluctantly to the Hokage. The civilian council agrees, though we do it under noted protest, said the pink-haired woman, who glared at Naruto one more time before keeping her face somewhat calm looking. Good. Now to deal with the two Anbu teams that were assigned to watch Naruto, said Sarutobi, turning to the shinobi teams in question with Kakashi's getting nervous. Hokage-sama, if I may speak on behalf of my team? Said the Neko-masked shinobi, approaching the table while staring directly at the Hokage. You may, said the third Hokage, gesturing her to speak her mind. My team's loyalty to Konoha is absolute, and we would never disobey your orders for an assignment given to us. This case is no different, and I can say right now on behalf of my entire team that we did the job you gave us to protect the Yondaime's son, said Neko before turning to face Sesshomaru, seeing him nod, having sensed no lie from her. Good. Neko, you and your team is cleared of all possible accusations with an increase in the team's pay to make up for it. Now if Hitaki Kakashi would step forward and account for themselves and the neglect in their duties last night, said the Sandame, whose face had now become more serious when facing the Cyclops. Hokage-sama, I unfortunately cannot speak for my whole team, as I was not always on time, and could not watch them all. After all, you know how I am with my tardiness and always being late for something. But I'm sure no one on my team would allow Naruto to be harmed by anyone, said Kakashi, his one seeable eye turning into a U-shape at the end. That's a load of crap, said Naruto, not going to be silent any longer. Watch your tongue, boy, said the pink-haired woman, only to be silent herself when she felt the eyes of Sesshomaru on her. Every time this guy's so-called team was on duty, I was always beaten up by someone and called names in the process. Not once did they help me, and only after I got beat up did they decide to help. They told me if I ever said anything they would kill me before you could punish them, said Naruto, glaring at Kakashi, who looked away, though it was unclear if it was due to shame at himself or anger at the boy that made him do that. I see. It seems that I have been a little too lenient when it comes to believing that the people of this village, both shinobi and civilian, will be nice to Naruto. As of right now, I am no longer going to be lenient with either side unless Naruto himself wishes me to be. As of right now, Kakashi's entire team except for Kakashi himself are hereby demoted to Chunin, and will have the necessary amount of money taken from their accounts that is equal to the amount you were paid for each completed day you watched over Naruto. In addition to that, I'm having each of you being sent to Ibiki for interrogation to find out who else has been violating my S-class law concerning Naruto before executing them, said the Sandame, who could almost see the various looks of protest behind the Anbu masks of each member of Kakashi's team. This is hardly fair, Hokage-sama. Such harsh punishment is not fitting for these Anbu Kakashi was leading, said Fugaku, looking at the Hokage in the hope the old man still had some form of sympathy in his old heart. Is that because they are highly skilled shinobi? Or is it because they are all Uchiha clan members? Said the Sandame, knowing that all members of Kakashi's team were Uchiha at the request of their clan head. Fugaku bit back a curse, forgetting that the Hokage knew exactly who was behind those Anbu masks. I'll leave the Hokage to administer the punishment from this point on, and I trust it will be done without opposition, said Sesshomaru as he picked up Naruto and placed him on his shoulder like he did with Rin later on during their travels. As the two walked out of the office, rather than simply teleporting out like they entered, Naruto couldn't help but wonder at what the future would hold for him now that he was the adopted son of a demon lord. Whatever the future held, good or bad, he was going to see to it that he would get stronger to one day surpass his dad. One day I'll become Hokage just like Dad was, and none of these arrogant jerks are going to stand in my way, thought Naruto, his eyes filled with ambition and desire to become strong. Deep inside Naruto, the beast inside of him stirred slightly. Word soon got out of the demon boy being adopted, and the rumor also spread of what they considered to be worse, being that the child was taken in by yet another demon lord that had entered the village. The people within the Leaf had protested this, of course, and demanded that the shinobi that protected them do their jobs to cast out the horrible beast along with its newly adopted demon son. The Sandame, of course, had come to address the largely displeased crowd, stating that the new demon lord, who was only known as Sesshomaru, was an official citizen of Konoha whether they liked it or not. That he, as the Hokage, could not infringe upon Sesshomaru's right to be in Konoha any more than he had on the people of the village as a whole, and to deny the demon lord his rights to be a Leaf citizen would most likely prove to be fatal. The third Hokage then told the people of Konoha of how the Yondaimi's wife died, and immediately everyone demanded some form of funeral service to the fourth Hokage's love. The Sandame, however, declined the demand, stating that the last known relative of the Namikaze line, that was the Yondaimi's son, did not want a funeral for the woman for private reasons, and that no one was allowed to have one without him giving them permission. When asked who the last member of the Namikaze clan was, the Sandame just said one single word to them: Naruto. The look on the people's faces were priceless, as some people protested, stating it was a lie for the demon to gain favor with them. The ones that had not hurt the boy at all were relieved that they hadn't dishonored the Yondaimi's last wish, and the others realizing what they had done a terrible wrong when it came to the boy. Though it didn't matter to the Sandame, as he told them that Sesshomaru was Naruto's legal guardian now, and all indiscretions against the boy would not be tolerated. As for Naruto, he had spent the entire week since his adoption focusing on practicing the molding of his chakra after reading several scrolls left in his father's library related to that matter. Sesshomaru found such readings interesting as well, since he had never heard of such things, and the more that he learned with Naruto the better. Upon trying to mold his chakra, however, Sesshomaru saw that the amount the boy was generating was much higher than a child was supposed to create at his age from what he understood. After he spoke to the Sandame, the aged Fire Shadow told the Demon Lord, when the man came to visit throughout the week, that there were some rare occasions where too much chakra did generate in kids just as young as Naruto. The best possible way for Naruto to deal with that was a lot of chakra control exercises to focus on harnessing such massive amounts of chakra in his system. The energetic blonde demon vessel was a little upset by this, since Naruto really wanted to learn all of the clan jutsus that were available to him right away. However, after his new father instructed him that control over one's own inner power before learning anything always came first, no matter what, the boy decided to listen to the man. Considering the experience that the Demon Lord had, Naruto decided to follow Sesshomaru's advice, and as a result by the end of the week Naruto had started getting the hang of it, if only slightly. Naruto had also learned that Sesshomaru was good in keeping his word when it came to training Naruto. He was going to be merciless in training the boy to become strong. When Naruto wasn't doing chakra control exercises, he was working hard on his taijutsu with training posts, and working on his aim with kunai or shuriken in the back. At night, the boy studied up on Konoha's history, and all the legendary shinobi of the other elemental countries to fill his head with information. Still, even with all that training, the boy seemed to be struggling heavily with the large amount of chakra he had, and because of the large amount he couldn't perform a simple clone. To Sesshomaru, this was not helpful to Naruto's development even if the clone jutsu was merely for someone with little strength to fool an overconfident one, and the Demon Lord felt further studying the necessary information concerning all the forms of clones ever created was needed. He eventually came upon the notes left by the Yondaime for the Shadow Clone Jutsu and the notes stating that this particular jutsu required a very large if not an enormous amount of chakra to make even just a few of them. It also stated that whatever the Shadow Clone learned the original would receive that information after it was dispelled. So Sesshomaru had Naruto learn the Shadow Clone Jutsu instead, and within no time the boy had the jutsu down like a fish did swimming in water. Now that Naruto had learned this very powerful skill, Sesshomaru could increase the training regimen of his son several times over, and have the original learn from him when it came mastering the powers of the demon sealed inside his body. From what the Sandaime knew of the seal left by the Yondaime in his notes, the seal in general containing the Kyuubi also transferred the demon's power into Naruto's chakra network, and if called upon could be manipulated over time. However, Sesshomaru knew that the Kyuubi would feel the extra pull, and would try to use it to its advantage. Not too surprising given the demon sealed inside Naruto was a fox, and therefore considered to be very crafty when getting out of cages. If Kyuubi ever did get out, it would kill the boy from the inside via an explosion of demonic energy before manifesting itself into its fox-like form, and most likely continue what it started 5 years ago. Sesshomaru needed to have a talk with the Kyuubi face to face. Hokage's office. The Sandaime didn't blink, didn't smoke his pipe, and didn't even breathe for a good 2 minutes before what Sesshomaru told him sunk into his head. Sesshomaru wanted to talk to the Kyuubi and convince the strongest of the 9 demon lords to work with the boy in getting stronger. Was the man insane? Do you think it's wise to talk to the Kyuubi? For all we know it could be asleep within Naruto, said the Sandaime, not wanting to awaken the sleeping beast or provoke it into trying to break the seal from the inside. He will listen to a fellow demon lord. I may not be from these lands, but I am demon lord by blood, and the Kyuubi will sense this when I speak to him. Dogs and foxes do not always get along, but we are essentially cousins in that sense, and if this benefits the Kyuubi in its survival, it will listen to reason, said Sesshomaru with Naruto sleeping in a chair next to him, having been placed into exhaustion from Sesshomaru's tests concerning Naruto's manipulation of the Kyuubi's demonic chakra. Very well. Though I suppose you were just being courteous in telling me this since you could have done it without my permission from the start, said the third Hokage, since there really wasn't anything that he could do to stop Sesshomaru from doing what he wanted. The fact that Sesshomaru came here to tell him, only told the third that the demon lord wanted his trust in the matter, and for the most part, he had it. Before I go, what do you know of the Hyuga clan? Said Sesshomaru, having recalled the clan head's stare during the final moments of that meeting. They are a very noble and strict clan filled with many traditions. They pride themselves on have a very powerful bloodline limit that can see into and through almost anything or anyone. However, one such tradition I am not fond of is the cage bird seal to separate the main family from the branch families, said the third, remembering how Hizashi was used to get Kumo off their back 2 years ago. Aside from the sound of this seal causing enslavement, what is the secondary purpose of the cage bird seal? Said Sesshomaru, as this seal reminded him of the rosary that once was around his younger brother's neck. It seals off the bloodline of the Hyuga, who bears its mark on his or her forehead. It causes pain to them when a main family member creates a hand sign and pushes chakra into it. If it is applied long enough and the Hyuga bearing the mark doesn't pass out from the pain, the bloodline will be sealed off, leaving the branch member useless to the clan, said the Sandaime, trying to gauge Sesshomaru's reaction to this information, but he felt as if he was talking to a statue. What can you tell me of the Hyuga clan's current status in terms of clan unity? Said Sesshomaru, his curiosity piqued by this information. The Sandaime didn't know why Sesshomaru wanted to know about the Hyuga clan, but since he had done no harm to Naruto, so far at least, he decided to go on a leap of faith, and explained the bad blood stirring within the clan itself. He even told the Demon Lord about what happened 2 years ago concerning Kumo's ambassador kidnapping attempt of the Hyuga heiress and how Hiyoshi's twin brother Hizashi paid the ultimate price that the current clan head was supposed to pay. How Hizashi's son Neji now hated the main family with a passion, how Neji became so cold towards the traumatized as well as shy Hyuga Hinata, and how the old traditions of the Hyuga clan were slowly killing it. So that's why he wants to talk with me. He's hoping I can help him in some way with this problem with my powers. Or is it something else? Thought Sesshomaru, but before his mind could ponder further, his son was stirring awake, and now was slowly becoming aware of his surroundings. Hey Dad, what are we doing in the old man's office? Said Naruto curiously while Sesshomaru raised an eyebrow at how his son addressed the Hokage while the Hokage himself just smiled at the boy. We were discussing something concerning your guest inside of you, as well as one of the clans in Konoha, said Sesshomaru, knowing that mentioning the demon's name had always bothered Naruto for obvious reasons. Oh, well, as long as it's not those freaky red eyes jerks then it's cool, said Naruto, giving a fox-like grin that reminded Sesshomaru of the fox demon Shippo. Naruto, have the Uchiha clan members ever hurt you outside of the orphanage? Said the Sandaime, looking at Naruto tense up slightly before nodding his head with a sad look on his face. They would try from time to time when I was let out. I would get away most of the time, but I think because of their freaky eyes I couldn't use the same escape route twice, said Naruto, finding that in order to lose the Uchiha clan attackers, he had to be unpredictable like the wind, and even wilder than one would be during a sandstorm in Suna. Did anyone other than the Neko's Anbu team help you at all? Said the Sandaime, since he knew many shinobi were out during the day throughout the village. Neko? Oh, you mean the nice cat masked lady. She helped from time to time when she and her friends were on duty to protect me, sure. There was this pretty lady wearing a vest and had sparkly red eyes almost like the Uchihas, but they weren't too freaky looking, said Naruto, putting on a thinking face while trying to remember what she looked like. He must mean Yuhi Kurenai. Only she would have red eyes that resemble an Uchiha, if one were looking at her from a distance, that is, and not her chest area, thought Sarutobi, knowing many a perverted men had been sent to Inoichi for mental health reasons as well as therapy for the genjutsus that lady put them through for looking past her jawline. Anyone else? Said the Sandaime, knowing that the more shinobi he could trust with Naruto the better should Sesshomaru unable to be around him. There was this purple-haired lady, but she seemed to be hurt by some of the comments people say around her, and I see she's just like me almost, said Naruto, remembering how the lady saved him from one mob when she unleashed several large snakes at them. He had tried to thank her, but she took off every time without even saying so much as a, "You're welcome," back to him. That sounds like Anko to me, since she's really the only one outside of Orochimaru who has the power to summon snakes, which means I now have 2 people outside of Yuago that I can trust, and have them watch over Naruto should I need to enlist Sesshomaru for something of extreme importance that I cannot trust to anyone else among the shinobi ranks. Thought third Hokage, knowing that there were various individuals on both of the councils who would want Sesshomaru's demonic powers put to use to further show the might of the leaf. If there is nothing else to discuss, we need to go to see the Inuzuka clan later today. The clan head Inuzuka Sume has invited us to dinner and we must both become presentable for such an occasion, said Sesshomaru, putting Naruto on his shoulder, and walked out of the room with the boy waving bye to the old man. And things keep getting more interesting, thought the Sandaime, sighing at the sight of the paperwork in front of him, wondering if he was ever going to get this done. Inuzuka clan. Several hours later. Inuzuka Sume had never been more afraid in terms of having over a guest in her entire life. Sure, she had faced enemy shinobi, dealt with 2 crazy pregnancies, and the Kyuubi itself knocking on Konoha's front door. However, this man had made all those things just seem like shadows compared to who she had invited over to her clan home. When she got back from the meeting, Sume instantly held a clan meeting with all the members of the Inuzuka clan, and told them what she knew. They had instantly become floored with this news and wanted to know more about this man, who was a demon lord of dog lineage. To them, Sesshomaru was the alpha to end all alphas in terms of the Inuzuka clan, and if he so wished could impose himself as the new clan head. Though that would most likely not happen on account of the man having adopted the son of the Yondaime, it was still a good thing to get to know him, and see if there was anything he could teach them to further advance the clan to new heights. Now the entire Inuzuka clan, both human and dog partner, were awaiting the arrival of the Demon Lord and his adopted son that was the heir to the Namikaze clan. They were not disappointed as Sesshomaru appeared in a glowing ball of energy, having teleported from the Namikaze estate after assisting Naruto getting changed for the event. The boy didn't like taking a bath, just like most animals, since the idea of being covered in water wasn't a pleasant feeling. However, Naruto didn't want people to see him as a dirty child, so he took his bath without complaint while Sesshomaru waited outside of the room waiting for the boy to finish after giving him the essential bathing essentials. Some of which the Demon Lord didn't understand, but believed that Naruto could figure it out on his own, and using what methods he had acquired in raising Rin helped too. Greetings Sesshomaru-sama, it is good to see you again since the large meeting with the two councils, and the Hokage had with you concerning your adopted son, said Sume, approaching the regal as ever Demon Lord, who nodded with his son on his shoulders doing the same. Sesshomaru looked at the clan head before looking past her to see the rest of the clan that, like name suggested, had a very special connection to dogs, and that was something he had never experienced before. Maybe that was the reason he agreed to the invitation after shortly receiving it? Sesshomaru himself didn't know, but as long as he was here, he might as well satisfy his curiosity, and learn more about Konoha's many clans. It is good to see you as well, Inuzuka-san. I thank you for the invitation to join your clan and family for dinner tonight, said Sesshomaru, giving his head a small bow with Naruto mimicking him, as the Demon Lord had drilled manners into the boy, and made sure to be polite in someone else's home. The dinner itself was a nice formal affair for the two guests, as the adults with their dog companions sat at the main table, and the kids with their puppy-like companions sitting at the kids' table. Sesshomaru of course was the center of attention at the main table, while Naruto was the center of attention at the kids' table, though unlike Sesshomaru, Naruto was receiving some hostile looks from Sume's youngest child Kiba, and quite frankly the blonde-haired boy didn't like it. So your father fell in love with a human woman and sired a half-demon with her? Said Inuzuka Sume, having heard stories of demons mating with humans, but never with the latter being the willing partner. That is correct. However, after my father died fighting a demon far stronger than him, my brother Inuyasha was exiled from our home along with his mother, and when she died while he was still a child he had to fend for himself. He was not well liked by either human or demonkind since half-demons are considered blasphemy between the two, said Sesshomaru, wishing he could have taken back the pain he caused his brother over the years. While this was going on, tension between Naruto and Kiba seemed to grow at the kids' table, with Inuzuka Hana, Kiba's older sister, having to break it with stern look to make her brother knock it off. The older sibling of the Inuzuka clan head didn't mind the blonde Namikaze at all and wouldn't mind calling him her friend in the future. What do you think of Konoha so far, Sesshomaru-sama? Said an Inuzuka clan member, wondering what the Demon Lord thought of the leaf despite the few bad apples it may contain. While I have only been in your village a short time, I am only slightly impressed at how your race has evolved from what it once was, said Sesshomaru, finding that his meal was quite satisfying to his canine appetite, though given the clan he was visiting it wasn't to be unexpected. Only slightly, said Sume, curious as to what he meant. Sesshomaru's answer came with the turning of his head towards the kids' table, where one Inuzuka Kiba had finally lost all form of restraint by grabbing Naruto's shirt, and tried to slug the blonde boy in the face. Fortunately, Naruto brought his hand up to catch the hand-turned fist, and held it firmly in his hand while glaring defiantly at his attacker. Naruto didn't want to start a fight with this angry Inuzuka kid, who for some reason looked like he wanted to break every bone in the demon vessel's body, and get in trouble with either his father or their hosts for the evening. What is your problem, Kiba? Said Naruto, keeping his hand tight on the Inuzuka boy's fist while the boy struggled to get his fist out of Naruto's hand. I don't like foxes, said Kiba, growling at Naruto, whose eyes had widened in shock at that remark, which allowed Kiba to break his fist free of Naruto's grip, and get a second shot in on the blonde. That is if Hana hadn't caught his hand at the wrist. Kiba, stop it. You're insulting the Namikaze heir and his father, said Hana, trying to get the clearly angry boy away from Naruto. As I said, I am only slightly impressed. While your race has evolved physically and even more so in terms of technology that was once beyond your usual boundaries, you still act on reckless compulsions like that arrogant and very stupid little boy," said Sesshomaru, who slowly got up from the table and walked over to the struggling child, wondering why he would hate Naruto so much. He knew Naruto wouldn't dare try anything, and the fact his son had simply caught the punch rather than returned it showed remarkable restraint. It was clear that Kiba, as the boy had been called, was in fact the guilty party, and the boy needed to be taught a lesson in humility. Which was why Sesshomaru, Tsume, Hana, Naruto, and Kiba were away from the others at the moment in order to avoid this conversation from being overheard. "Why did you attack my son?" said Sesshomaru, with his presence shadowing the two kids, with Inuzuka Hana giving a small squeak at the sight of him so close up before she let go of her brother and bowed submissively to him. "Because he's your son, that's why. I heard what the villagers always call him when they think we aren't around to hear them. He smells of foxes, and dogs and foxes can't coexist with each other," said Kiba, who was much more defiant looking than his sister, cowering before the demon lord. "Kiba," said Tsume, wishing her boy hadn't gotten a mix of her and husband's damnable pride making him more gutsy than anything. "What? I know what's inside him. I remember how you told me how dad died fighting the Kyuubi, and since this kid holds the demon, I figured that I can get my fair share of licks in to avenge my father," said Kiba, looking at his mother before glaring at Naruto, who ignored it and focused on his father, awaiting any possible punishment on his end. "Is this true, Mom?" said Hana, looking back and forth between Naruto and her mother, not believing that this boy the demonic fox inside of him. "We'll talk about this in private at a later time, Hana, as with you, Kiba, but for now I do not want you to jump to any conclusions, and keep an open mind," said Tsume, looking at Kiba with a glare while giving Hana an apologetic smile that told the older of the two children that all would be explained. "Were my actions appropriate, father?" said Naruto, as a sense of fear towards the man crept up his spine, which didn't go unnoticed by the demon lord. "Yes. You held yourself with a great deal of restraint and patience I would not expect in many boys, who had just turning 5-year-olds. You are progressing better than I had hoped under my tutelage, Naruto," said Sesshomaru, patting the boy several times on his blonde head approvingly, making Naruto sigh in relief. "As for you, Kiba, you are in serious trouble. Not once did I hate Naruto for the demon sealed inside of him, and neither should you," said Tsume, scowling at her son, who was slightly shocked by this, but didn't lose his sense of hate for Naruto. For now, Kiba would keep his anger in check. "Dad, you're not going to ask the old man to punish them, are you?" said Naruto, looking at his father, not wanting to get the whole clan punished for just one of its members. "No. Making such noise over a single incident like this would be premature and pointless at this time. I will leave the boy's mother the task of punishing her son for his stupidity, as well as explaining the situation fully to her daughter," said Sesshomaru before looking at Tsume, who nodded to the demon lord, and then gave a fierce glare to Kiba. Shortly after the incident, the two guests decided it was time to leave, and bid the Inuzuka clan members goodbye before heading home. As they walked, Sesshomaru noticed that several shinobi were on the rooftops observing them, and had a taint about them that told the demon lord they were hardly friendly. Sesshomaru also had the scent of the man in the room with one arm and eye, meaning these shinobi were under that man's command, not the Hokage. It was clear these shinobi were waiting for the right moment to strike at him, but they had no idea that he knew they were there. "Naruto, I want you to close your eyes from here on out until we arrive back home, or I say otherwise." "Understood," said Sesshomaru, who got a brief nod from the boy, who had apparently sensed them too. With Naruto's eyes now shut, Sesshomaru quickly went to work on the 6 masked ninja around him, as he easily killed them all without the slightest difficulty, and afterwards he took the only undamaged mask with head attached to take to the 3rd Hokage so the old leader could explain what the meaning of what this was. The demon lord had no doubt the old man was sincere in letting him stay in the village to raise Naruto, but there were others with not so pure intentions, and this, Root, Anbu were clearly a part of it. Hyuga compound. Hiyashi was getting worried. His wife Hitomi was having some complications with the pregnancy of their second child, and the doctors had stated there was a chance she would not survive giving birth. It devastated the clan head to no end, and the elders were getting more aggressive in wanting to push Hinata further than she already was with her gentle fist training. The girl was still shy after what happened 2 years ago and the loss of his brother due to one of the elders' suggestions. Now Neji hated Hinata, hated him, hated the entire main family, and the one real thing he could give the boy to clear this whole situation up was in his office never to be opened until a, to be determined, date set by the Hyuga elders. What a stupid game those old fools are playing. They know that Hinata is too much like her sweet mother and will want to remove the cage bird seal forever from the Hyuga clan. Yet, they want the families to stay divided like some scattered jigsaw puzzle to piece only pockets of the family together rather than unite the whole clan. Now those same Hyuga elders would continue have a chance to further their control over the clan, which he had spent so many years with the Yondaime loosening, and it would soon all be thanks to the inevitable birth of his second child. Hyuga Hiyashi needed a miracle. He needed an act of kami. Or perhaps, an act of a demon lord. It was at that moment, Hiyashi remembered something he had long since forgotten during the meeting concerning Sesshomaru and his adopted son that was the Yondaime's child. When the Hyuga clan head used his Byakugan to see Sesshomaru's chakra points, he noticed that the two swords at his waist gave off very different chakra signatures. One was pure demonic while the other was celestial, almost heavily in a sense, and almost at once Hiyashi believed that in that sword through Sesshomaru that his wife could be saved. Walking past his sleeping wife's room, he peeked in to see her sweating up a storm in her sleep with that large mountain, which was her stomach, though he would never say it like that, and holding their fragile child in the balance. She was slowly getting worse with the date of the baby's birth drawing closer and closer to becoming any day now. He doubted that without her around to keep his temper in check, Hiyashi would become a cruel father to one or both his children, and the clan head knew that his soul could not handle that at all. Finding a branch family member, Hiyashi ordered a verbal message to be delivered to the demon lord to request the man's presence at the Hyuga compound the next day. If his brother Hizashi could fight fate, then by kami Hiyashi was going to do the same, and win just like his twin. Hokage's office. When Sesshomaru appeared before the Hokage via teleporting and saw Naruto covered slightly in blood splatters, the old man nearly had a stroke. The last thing the old formerly retired Hokage needed was an angry demon lord on his back about hostile villagers and possibly shinobi too. However, when Sesshomaru showed him the root Anbu masked head he had acquired, Sarutobi knew who was to blame for this, and after talking further on the matter understood everything. This was once a division established years ago when such forces were needed to fight the enemies that surrounded us amongst the elemental nations. However, after the last shinobi war, people were tired of all the fighting, including one of my students, who lost the ones she cares about the most. People wanted peace to return in order for things to become stabilized around them, and that was exactly what they were given by their village kage. Danzo, however, refuses to embrace peace in any sense of the word, and wants to further militarize the Leaf Village to become an unequal power among the other shinobi villages, said Sarutobi, letting out a heavy sigh, finding it was actually refreshing to let out all this information to someone he felt he could trust with it. It was not like Sesshomaru could use it in any way, right? I suggest you keep tabs on this human filth known as Danzo. It's clear that his division is not as disbanded as you believe it to be, said Sesshomaru, who got a nod from the old man, and looked to Naruto, who seemed to be getting sleepy after all the excitement that had been happening around him. I'll do just that, I assure you, Sesshomaru-sama, said Sarutobi before the demon lord before him teleported out of his office, having completed their conversation. Did Sesshomaru have to dump the bloody head onto the large pile of paperwork that I finished? Thought an irritated Sandame, now having to get the blood-covered pieces of paperwork redone all over again. Sometimes the Sandame wished he was in the belly of the Shinigami right now instead of the Yondaime. Namikaze Estate. Sesshomaru appeared outside of the massive home to see a man that had the same eyes as Hiyashi and assumed he was from the Hyuga clan. The said Hyuga clan member now bowed before the great demon lord, knowing that showing anything but respect to this man would mean his death. Hyuga Hiyashi has asked you to give me a message, I assume, said Sesshomaru, having figured that out from the fact that the messenger had no scroll of or message in his hand to deliver a written message. Yes, Sesshomaru-sama. Hyuga Hiyashi humbly requests your presence at the Hyuga compound tomorrow at your earliest conveyance. It is a matter of great importance to him that he speaks to you about a personal matter. He also welcomes your son into his home and under his protection if needed, said the Hyuga branch member, hoping the demon lord would agree to come see the clan head tomorrow. Tell Hiyashi-sen I will see him sometime tomorrow morning and expect me no later than that, said Sesshomaru, who got a quick nod from the Hyuga messenger before the man left quickly to report the good news. Another interesting day gone by, said Naruto sleepily before yawning in a very fox-like manner before scratching an itch on the side of his head. Yes son, it certainly has been, and I can sense there are more days like this to come, said Sesshomaru walking into the house before putting Naruto to bed. Secret Root HQ. Danzo was angry. No, the Root leader was infuriated. The report before him came from his Root scout that he had sent after the agents he ordered to secretly attack the powerful dog demon Lord Sesshomaru failed to report in. His scout informed him that all the Root Anbu had been massacred and one of them had his head missing, which Danzo knew didn't bode well for him. Should we attack him in greater numbers, Danzo-sama? Said a pale-faced boy sitting in a chair working on an ink painting. No. He most likely went to that old fool Sarutobi about who those Anbu were that tried to attack him. This means the Hokage knows about Root still being in existence, but he won't dare bring it up, or charge me with anything since I've gotten support from several key influential parties in Konoha. If he does bring it up, I can use my position to move for Root to be reactivated in order to further protect Konoha from future threats, said Danzo, knowing that the time to strike the Demon Lord was too soon in the planning stages. Hyuga compound the next morning. Are you sure he will come? Said Hiyashi, who had been glad at hearing the good news from the branch family member last night and now could only wait almost painfully for the man that could possibly save his wife. He said he would. Hiyashi-sama. I dare not lie to you about such a thing, said the branch family member, hoping that the Demon Lord would show up so the man before him did not use the cage bird seal as an act of punishment. Hiyashi believed the branch family member and trusted that Sesshomaru would show up to explain the situation to the man, despite the Hyuga elders had protested this originally on the ground that what was happening to Hitomi was Hyuga clan business. Hiyashi wanted to strike them all down, claiming that such a thing was happening to his wife was Hyuga clan business. It was not. It was the cold hand of death seeking to take another family member from him, and the only one that could stop it was not here yet. Hiyashi-sama. Hiyashi-sama, Sesshomaru-sama has just arrived along with his son, said another Hyuga branch member, running up to the clan head, practically gripping the wall for support. Did you invite the Demon Lord in? Said Hiyashi sternly, knowing that one did not keep a Demon Lord waiting for long. Of course. Sesshomaru-sama's son is currently with Hinata-sama in the garden and is being watched by Neji-san, said the Hyuga branch member, since everyone had been told to not to lay hand on the boy whether they were from the main or branch family. Thank you both for your help. I must speak to Sesshomaru-sama at once, said Hiyashi, walking at a quick pace to see his guest. With Naruto. The blonde-haired boy had seen the Namikaze estate gardens, and the boy had been awed by them greatly when he saw the beauty they held. He had started feeling something of a caring nature when it came to plants, or rather in this case large, the garden-like area that stood around him. That wasn't the only thing though that caught his eye. What he saw was a pretty girl his age tending to some flowers, completely unaware of his existence, and was working her small gentle hands on the current flower that needed her merciful touch. He didn't know why, but Naruto felt compelled to walk over to her and greet her, since his father would probably be some time with whoever he was meeting in this place. Walking over to her, Naruto gently tapped her on the shoulder, making the girl give off a tiny squeak noise, as she blushed in surprise at the sight of him before her, and put her fingers together. Hi, my name is Namikaze Naruto. What's yours? Said Naruto, not knowing why she was blushing or why she was putting her fingers together in such a manner. Though Naruto thought it kind of made her look prettier. My name is Hyuga Hinata. It is a pleasure to meet you, Namikaze-san, said Hinata, as she had heard the boy was coming over to the house, and had no idea that he would run into her. She quickly gave a bow, with Naruto returning it before they both sat down on a nearby bench so they could talk more. You're welcome, Hinata-san, though if you don't mind, I would like it if you called me Naruto. It makes things easier for you that way, said Naruto, since he didn't want to be called that until he felt it was appropriate. Of course, Naruto-san. My apologies, said Hinata, hoping she had not offended this boy before her, who made her feel so much energy inside. You didn't know Hinata-san, so there is no need to apologize, said Naruto, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. I agree, said the stern voice of a Hyuga male a few years older than the two, making Naruto turn around, his body going slightly tense since his father told him to always keep his guard up no matter what. And you are? said Naruto, wondering why this kid reminded him so much of Kiba with that scowl on his face. Hyuga Neji, I am Hinata-sama's bodyguard right now, and I would appreciate it if you did not have such close contact with her, said Neji, having been briefed of the situation and had witnessed the interaction between them. It's all right, Neji ni-san. I was caught off guard momentarily when I was tending to the flowers, so it was my fault that I wasn't paying attention, said Hinata, who wished her cousin, whom she thought of as a brother, would stop scowling all the time. You don't have to apologize for that, Hinata-san. You were just so deep in thought with your work on the garden that you blocked everything out. I do it all the time at my house when I'm working on my garden or training with Dad, said Naruto, giving her a foxy grin that made the shy girl sport a blush on her cheeks for reasons that eluded her. Nonetheless, I must ask that you leave Hinata-sama alone, said Neji, hinting his words to suggest that if Naruto didn't back off, the boy was going to feel firsthand the power behind the gentle fist. And while Neji didn't want to do that given his orders with boy in particular, it would get the point across. What if Hinata-chan doesn't want me to leave her alone? What if Hinata-chan likes to be around me? I say let her decide, said Naruto, frowning at the older kid, not seeing the girl's face turning slightly pink at the choice of suffix used. Neji returned the frown given to him, wishing that this Namikaze, as he was claimed to be, would just leave, and not bother him or the one he was charged with protecting. He didn't know all of the things concerning Naruto, his adopted father, and or what they were here in the Hyuga compound for, except that they deserved to be treated with respect. Neji knew that if he didn't do as ordered, Hiyashi or some other main family member would use this as an excuse, and activate the accursed cage bird seal on his head. Just like when Uncle Hiyashi activated the seal on my father 2 years ago during that one training session I had with Hinata, thought Neji bitterly, with his killer intent rising, and was aimed at Hinata, who shivered at the feel of it before Naruto punched Neji in the face to make him stop. You jerk, can't you see that you're making Hinata-chan feel uneasy with all that anger you were aiming at her? Said Naruto, raising his voice slightly while Neji just wiped the blood from the side of his mouth, slightly surprised the boy could hit him so hard. Without even talking back, Neji activated his Byakugan while calling out its name, and now slipped into the Hyuga clan's gentle fist stance while Naruto gently motioned for Hinata to move back so she wouldn't get hurt. Neji almost smirked at the delight he was feeling at fighting this so-called Namikaze, having heard the stories of the Yondaime, and decided to see who of the two clans were stronger. Surely if the Namikaze lost to a Hyuga branch family member, what hope did this boy stand against the Hyuga main family? Naruto-kun, please be careful. Neji ni-san is very skilled in our clan's fighting style, said a worried Hinata, who blushed at the suffix she used, though a part of her didn't mind it. Don't worry, Hinata-chan, I'll be careful. I promise, said Naruto, looking back her with a gentle smile that made Hinata blush even deeper while the said boy turned to face Neji with a fierce glare. I was originally told not to do anything physically hostile to you, but since you drew the first punch regardless of the reason, I can now strike back out of self-defense, and for the dignity of the Hyuga clan branch family that I am a part of, said Neji while Naruto got into his fighting stance as well. The only reason I gave you that punch was to make you stop making Hinata feel so bad inside with all the hate and anger you were giving off. As for your dignity, I say you lost that the moment you started being mean to Hinata-chan. So bring it on, you totally stupid and arrogant jerk, said Naruto, as he was going to show this kid what he did wrong. With Sesshomaru and Hiyashi. I see. Your wife is in labor and will most likely die giving birth to your child, said Sesshomaru, who had been speaking to the Hyuga clan head about several things upon his arrival. Now the two stood in the same room as the woman, who did not look up at the demon lord in fear, and instead held her husband's hand with her own while fighting the pain the child was putting her through. Hiyashi had explained that giving birth to his firstborn Hinata was born without complications, but this child was the exact opposite of her, and could devastate the family as a whole. Hiyashi explained to Sesshomaru what happened that night when Kumo tried to take his daughter 2 years ago and his daughter had started acting timid or shy towards others. How Hinata needed her mother in order to keep his daughter from being trapped within a shell of fear of things that came her way. When I tried to see your chakra network through my eyes, I saw that both of your two swords were different, and the one that was sheathed I saw had mystical energy coming from it that is related to healing, said Hiyashi, seeing Sesshomaru raise an eyebrow at this information of the Hyuga's bloodline, seeing so extensively of what he held. You are referring to Tenseiga then. This is a very powerful living sword of incredible healing power that was forged from my father's own fang. It has saved me on several occasions, as well as others that fell upon death's grasp. When the time comes with your wife dying, I will use my sword to save her life, and ensure that your firstborn does not become the weak girl these clan elders of yours wish her to become," said Sesshomaru. Seeing the happy couple together reminded him somewhat of his father and how he had saved Inuyasha's mother from dying when she was pregnant with him. "Thank you Sesshomaru-sama," said Hitomi weakly, as she would forever be in debt to the demon lord for saving her. "You are welcome Hitomi-san. Hiyashi will send for me once the time has come for you to give birth to your child," said Sesshomaru, bowing his head slightly before he quietly left the room to give the two some time together while he sought out his son. It wasn't until he heard a little girl scream that he felt something close to dread worm its way into his heart, and he suddenly moved at a quicker pace to investigate the matter. When Sesshomaru appeared at the spot Naruto was supposed to be, what he saw surprised him slightly, as he saw Naruto was down on the ground in pain. Next to the boy was one crying little girl and surprised boy. "Please get up Naruto-kun. Please get up," said Hinata, rolling Naruto over onto his back, seeing the drop of blood on the side of his lips and his eyes closed. "What is going on here?" said Sesshomaru, looking quite upset at the moment, though he kept his face calm at the moment since there was no point in killing anyone, yet. The two Hyuga children remained silent, one out of care for the demon vessel, the other out of fear, and with Hiyashi now entering the garden, seeing Naruto on the ground didn't help either. Hiyashi immediately asked the same question that Sesshomaru did, with Neji frowning slightly as if to contemplate on whether or not to tell his uncle. Sesshomaru walked towards his son and the crying girl, who the demon lord knew couldn't have put Naruto in this state simply out of how she was reacting to his fallen form. From the way the other boy was frowning in thought, it was clear to Sesshomaru that the boy was the one responsible for this, and while he didn't know the full story behind it, he was certain it was not Naruto's fault. Fortunately, the demon lord had sensed the boy was not dead, just badly injured from the attack delivered, and given enough time Naruto would be back on his feet to continue his training. "Hinata, what happened?" said Hiyashi, seeing how Neji was still in thought and decided to go the path of least resistance. Hinata looked at her father with tears and told her everything about how she met Naruto to the point where the boy defended her against Neji. How Neji had been letting out killer intent that was aimed at her, and how Naruto punched Neji in the face to make him stop, thus leading to the fight between the two, but it was there that Hinata's defender fell at Neji's hands because of her desire to step into the fight. Flashback. Naruto threw out a punch that Neji dodged slightly due to his Byakugan active and struck back with a palm to his opponent's shoulder. Naruto spun to avoid the attack successfully before delivering a kick to Neji's side, which the boy grabbed, and was prepared to strike back at when his opponent used his other leg, jumped slightly into the air to land a kick to the Hyuga boy's temple. Neji stumbled back slightly, surprised at the unforeseen move done by Naruto, before he cracked his neck slightly before he charged at his opponent. The two engaged in a fierce taijutsu match with Naruto, who was not moving as fast as he would have liked since his father was making him wear weights this morning. It was after Naruto found a scroll that talked about how shinobi sometimes wore weights to become stronger that Sesshomaru wanted him to do the same starting today. That was the main reason why he and Sesshomaru didn't show up earlier at the Hyuga compound until late into the morning. Such heavy weights had made it difficult to walk around, and right now it was taking all of Naruto's energy to move at the speed he was moving at right now. Neji scored a crucial blow to Naruto's left arm, making the boy spin around using his now limp arm like a blunt object, hitting Neji hard while knocking out at least 2 baby teeth, and giving the Hyuga boy a blood nose in the process. The said Hyuga, who was not missing a beat, did a spin of his own, only he used his foot to connect with Naruto's face, and struck several chakra points in Naruto's right arm. As the two stopped for a moment to breath and survey their handiwork, Hinata looked on with worry at the two, knowing that this was getting out of hand, and before the two could continue she got between them. "Please stop it, I don't want you fighting anymore," said Hinata, looking at both Neji and then at Naruto, who got out of his weakened fighting stance while Neji did too. "Out of respect for you Hinata-chan, I will. You think you could somehow help me with my arms, please?" said Naruto, grinning at Hinata, who blushed, though before she had even realized what she was doing, she called out her bloodline limit and activated it to assist the boy in reopening his chakra points. Meanwhile, Neji had become startled by Hinata's use of her Byakugan at such a young age, and all because of this boy she was helping had requested it of her. It was insulting to his pride as the heir to the head branch family that someone so shy, so timid, and so weak had done something he didn't think would happen for at least a few more years that would help give him the edge when the time came for her gentle fist training. Why was it that the main family got all the breaks while the branch family suffered for even the slightest thing they wanted in life? Neji couldn't see straight anymore. All he saw was red. He saw the now happy children in front of him talking while he, a kid like them having been marked to serve the main family, being forced to be the loyal servant that was a slave in all but name, and with most of people like them currently treating his side of the family no better than that of a mere household pets. Reactivating his bloodline, Neji charged forward, intending to end the life of one of the two not unsuspecting targets, not caring who he hit, since one's end would mean another's suffering, and thus make Neji's mind ease the haunting demons of his father's agony that would one day be his. To spend your days as a servant for lazy old Hyuga main family members. To pay for your failures at the hands of the arrogant Hyuga main family members via cage bird seal on one's forehead. To be humiliated by their mocking, the pointing, and at the laughter when being punished when the cage bird seal was activated. Charging forward, Neji stuck out his palm while holding a large portion, or rather it was a large for someone of his age, into his hands, and aimed it at the shocked Hyuga heiress. The move had come at a surprise for both Naruto and Hinata, that neither of them had any real time to move at all to prevent both of them from being hurt. Naruto, however, didn't want his newfound friend to be hurt by this attack, and without any further hesitation pushed Hinata out of the way, taking the hit for her in the chest area. "Looks like you got your family's dignity back, you cowardly baka," said Naruto, who was now smiling slightly at Neji's shocked face before falling to the ground both down and out while Hinata's scream pierced the air. End flashback. Hiyashi couldn't believe it, and to make sure the boy was all right, or at least be alive to live another day, he activated his Byakugan to check on the damage. What he saw next made him frown in disbelief. Naruto's chakra network, though hit hard, were no longer damaged, and the internal injuries, while still there, were healing at an incredible rate. It has to be the Kyuubi's doing. Anyone else his age would have succumbed to death by now, thought Hiyashi, who was now looking directly at Neji, and the Hyuga clan head could only imagine what Sesshomaru was going to do to his nephew. "Will Naruto-kun be all right, father?" said Hinata worriedly, as she didn't even know how to properly thank him for preventing her demise. "Yes, Hinata, but I have to take him over to the hospital just to be safe," said Hiyashi, as he gently picking up the boy and headed for the hospital to give Naruto a proper checkup. "As for you, boy, I will deal with you in my own way right after Naruto is declared safe from harm, and when I'm done with you, I will see to it that you beg for that seal on your forehead to be activated," said Sesshomaru before walking out of the room, taking Hinata with him since he did not trust the Hyuga male to watch over Hiyashi's daughter. It was at this moment that Neji feared for his life, with the source of impending doom for once not being a Hyuga. Konoha Hospital. Sesshomaru had never visited the hospital, and from the smell of everything he would rather not anytime soon, with the wave of scents that hit his nose. The nauseating smells of various antibacterial sterilizers, the deaths of past as well as present, and other far more horrible smells filled his senses, making him stay still to focus on suppressing the horrible stenches around him. The Hyuga girl on his shoulders climbed off his body before sitting down on a nearby hospital bench to wait for further instructions. The doctors and nurses looked at Hiyashi carrying in Naruto, only to give the boy an angry glare, not really caring if the boy was the Yondaimi's son or being carried in by Hyuga Hiyashi himself. Frankly, they still believed that the boy was the Kyuubi reborn inside the Yondaimi's son, and that the child should die so the lost soul of the Namikaze offspring would be able to rest in peace. "You are a healer of this place, are you not? Why do you not attempt heal him?" said an annoyed Sesshomaru, having regained his control, and grabbed the nearest doctor. "Because like you, he is a demon, and unlike the Hokage we do not tolerate your kind at all," said the doctor, who knew the Hokage needed doctors, and believed that his position, due to its importance as one, gave him immunity from such actions that would get normal people killed. The people around the hospital backed away moments later when the confident doctor, or rather what was left of him, fell to the ground, white coat, glasses, and decaying skeleton and all. Sesshomaru did not care for the man's foolish belief of immunity from harm due to his position as a healer, nor was he aware of it. though the demon lord suspected the man was hiding behind something along those lines when he declined to help Naruto. "Heal my son right now or you will all share the same fate as this dead fool before you," said Sesshomaru, cracking his hand ready to cover this place in blood and death. Almost instantly, 5 doctors and 4 nurses took Naruto from Hiyashi and rushed him to a room to do tests on him to check on his condition. Hiyashi decided to go with the doctors since they needed to know what was wrong with the boy in the first place before they could even treat him. As for Sesshomaru, he saw that Hinata had become slightly frightened of him, but she fought to be calm like any Hyuga would in her place, and was able to contain most of the shiver that ran through her body. Motioning her to come forward, Hinata dared not disobey the demon lord, and the two headed down the corridor to where Hiyashi was watching the doctors take care of Naruto. "How is his condition?" said Sesshomaru, since Hiyashi would know more about what his nephew had done to Naruto than him. "Good. The strike Neji hit Naruto with would have killed a lesser child, but due to the boy's unique condition, he will recover within a few days, and will be cleared from the hospital," said Hiyashi, his Byakugan active to keep an eye on the doctors while knowing he was going to have to punish Neji for this, even if the Hyuga elders may hold back on such a punishment using the excuse of the main and branch family being strained as it was. "I will stay with Naruto for a little while longer. Escort your daughter back home before informing the Hokage of this," said Sesshomaru, knowing that the old village leader was going to wish to know why Naruto was in the hospital. "If it's all right with Sesshomaru-sama, could I stay a little while with Naruto-kun?" said Hinata, looking at her father, who looked at the demon lord, only for him to gaze down at her with analytical eyes before nodding to the child, and let her be the first to walk into the boys' room once the doctors left. Putting his index and middle finger together, Sesshomaru placed them on Naruto's head before closing his own eyes in concentration while the two Hyuga just watched. "It's as I suspected," said Sesshomaru before opening his eyes and putting his fingers away from Naruto. "What is?" said Hiyashi, frowning slightly at the demon lord while Hinata just poked a finger at Naruto experimentally to see if he would awaken. "He's speaking to him," said Sesshomaru, knowing that Hiyashi would get the meaning while Hinata looked at the two of them curiously, wondering what or rather who they were talking about. "Who?" said Hinata, since she wanted to know what the two adults were talking about. "It's best if you tell her in private, Hiyashi-san," said Sesshomaru, getting a nod from the Hyuga head, who took his daughter outside to discuss this matter in private. Both men were well aware of the law concerning Naruto, but they were sure the old man would let it slide given the circumstances of it being broken. "Tell me what, father?" said Hinata, seeing the slightly worried yet still serious expression that now appeared on the man's face as the two walked out of the room into the private corridor. Before Hiyashi spoke, he shut the door behind him, leaving Sesshomaru alone with his son. "Now to pay a visit to Kyuubi inside Naruto's mind," said Sesshomaru, placing his index and middle fingers yet again on Naruto's forehead before concentrating his own mind to allow him access to the boy's own. Naruto's mindscape. "Ow. When I get my hands on that baka I'm going to beat him to a bloody pulp," said Naruto, waking up to find he was not in the Hyuga compound with Hinata or Neji. "You humans are too noisy. Keep it down," said a demonic voice, sounding quite irritated at the moment, like it had just been woken up. "Who said that?" said Naruto, looking around wondering, who or what spoke within this place. "Do you really want to know? Follow the path before you," said the demonic in a calm voice, though there was a sense of mischievousness about it. Naruto did just that and followed the path before him that eventually led him to a large room with an equally large cage. The massive cage itself was golden colored, which it seemed like something that of royalty, if someone of royalty was imprisoned in, would reside. And holding the gate together was a slip of paper with the word, "Seal," in big letters. Behind the bars was the sound of heavy breathing, but not in the way someone was gasping for breath after running so much, and it was deep like the voice that spoke to him. "Are you in there?" said Naruto, having a feeling that this was who he thought it was, as a pair of red slit eyes glowed behind the cage bars, and large white teeth soon followed afterwards. "What do you think, runt?" said the demonic voice behind the cage, peering at Naruto with fiery eyes. "I think you are the Kyuubi, the demon lord that killed my real father and made just about everyone in the village hate me. Including my own mother," said Naruto, scowling at the fox, who cocked its head to the side, as if this should be important to him in some manner. "Are you trying to make some kind of point? You make it seem like it goes against the natural order of things for a parent to abandon a child. You humans are such inferior creatures that the only reason Kami forgives you for all that you destroy is simply due to him pitying you. Not love. Now had you been born a demon, you would know the comfort of at least one parent, since full-grown demons do not abandon their young unless there were other kin available for the task of raising the child, and even then it's not considered abandonment, said Kyubi, moving its head lower to get a closer look at jailer of his demonic being. Indeed, said Sesshomaru, appearing before the two, shocking both the living prison and the prisoner at the same time. Dad, how did you get here? Said Naruto, running over to his adopted father and gave him a hug along the leg area. A demon lord such as me has ways, said Sesshomaru before looking at Kyubi and giving the large fox an analyzing gaze to measure its power. So you are the demon I sensed recently. You are indeed a demon lord, yet you are not from this dimension, said Kyubi, smelling the scent dog demon on the man and the power that was wielded behind his form. Correct. However, my coming to this shinobi village is irrelevant at the moment. What is relevant at the moment is the reason behind your attack on the Leaf Village 5 years ago that caused you to be sealed inside of Naruto, said Sesshomaru, gazing at the fox, who snarled at that agonizing memory of defeat. I'll tell you, but not now. I'm not in the mood to tell you, since I was forcibly woken up from my sleep after someone took a hit to the chest delivered by that hairless ape speck of a Hyuga. Because of this Shinigami seal, if this boy dies, then I will die with him, and I will not have my life ended simply because Mr. Hero wanted to play the noble knight to save the damsel in distress. Be gone from my sight, the both of you now, and know that this piece of information concerning my sudden arrival is crucial to learning the truth. The hidden truth you will be looking for lies in the secrets of the Sharingan, and the one dirty little secret that the Uchiha clan doesn't want the Hokage to know about, said Kyubi, letting out a sinister chuckle before forcing Naruto conscious and Sesshomaru out of Naruto's mind. Hospital room. Naruto had been awakened to the sight of a white-tiled ceiling with Sesshomaru standing over him along with the Hokage, who smiled at him like any grandfather would. Naruto knew that the old man had always had his best interest at heart, but the fact remained that not everyone had as big a heart as the Hokage, and not nearly as caring either. How do you feel, Naruto? Said Sarutobi, having gotten the full story from Hiyashi, who had to take home a slightly crying Hinata after she had been told the truth concerning Naruto. Fine, though my chest feels like someone put weight on it, said Naruto, as he squirmed a little at the feeling of such an invisible weight on his body. That's to be expected after taking a gentle fist strike from a Hyuga prodigy and living to tell the tale. Hiyashi-san has told me that he told Hinata your secret, said the Sandame, who inwardly winced at seeing Naruto's form stiffen, since the child was clearly afraid of losing a possible friend in the girl. I guess this means I'm no longer welcome back at the Hyuga clan anymore. I'm sorry, father, said Naruto, looking away from Sesshomaru in shame at himself. On the contrary, Naruto, from what I saw was Hinata understanding that you are not the demon, but rather its jailer, and I believe she still wants to be your friend, said the third Hokage, seeing Hinata nodding to her father in understanding of what the Yondaime had wanted for Naruto and that the boy was not the demon itself. Really? Said Naruto hopefully, since friendship to him was worth more than the gold and jewels people tried to buy every day. Of course, the fact that you saved Hinata from her own cousin didn't hurt either in that regard, said the Sandame, knowing that both parents to the little girl would be forever in the boy's debt. I'm going to kick that Baka's butt when I get out of here. I don't think he's a very good influence on her, said Naruto, getting a sad smile from the third and a barely noticeable nod from Sesshomaru. Your father will have to talk to Hiyashi about proper punishment for Neji's actions, but for now, let's focus on you, and what happened while you were out, said the Sandame, wondering how Naruto could deal with everything he had so far. Well, for one thing, I met the Kyubi, and he wasn't exactly happy given the fact he was inside a giant cage while healing me for being noble and saving Hinata. He also said to ask you about the hidden truth behind the Sharingan and something about investigating the dirty little secret behind the Sharingan that the Uchiha clan doesn't want you to know. I think it's related to how he suddenly appeared and attacked Konoha, said Naruto, seeing the deathly pale look on Sarutobi's face when he heard this. I see. Fortunately, I have a member of the Uchiha clan that I know is loyal to me, who I can have investigate this matter in secret, and until I say otherwise or until we learn more from the Kyubi, neither of you can tell anyone about this, said the Sandame, knowing that while Sesshomaru would keep this a secret whether ordered to or not, Naruto was a different matter since he was still a kid, and was still too young to be trusted to keep a secret willingly. "Don't worry, old man, I can keep a secret if I really have to," said Naruto, giving a fox-like grin before receiving a chuckle in return from the Hokage, knowing that what the boy said was true. As long as no one bribed the boy with bowl after bowl of free ramen, that is. It had been 2 weeks since the incident at the Hyuga estate, and things had evened out during that time between with Sesshomaru and the Hyuga clan regarding Naruto. 2 days after the said incident, Hyuga Hitomi had gone into labor, as she could no longer contain the seemingly violent baby in her womb, and Hiyashi had his broken hand to prove it. As expected, complications arrived with the child. A girl named Hanabi came out of Hitomi's womb, and screaming as if she saw the devil himself. Flashback. Hitomi-chan. "I can't feel my hand," said Hiyashi, wincing in pain as his wife's death trap grip on him, having already broke 2 of his 5 fingers on his right hand and going for the finger number 3. "Well, dear, perhaps you would like to give birth to this child," said Hitomi before screaming in pain while her hand squeezed Hiyashi's harder, breaking the remaining 3 fingers the Hyuga head had left. "It's a girl," said the doctor, holding a screaming Hyuga girl thrashing around slightly in the man's arms. "Hiyashi-kun. I feel so tired," said Hitomi, feeling her life draining before the man's eyes, and looked to Sesshomaru for help while the demon lord moved closer to her with his hand on Tensiga's hilt. In less than a second, Sesshomaru swung the blade down upon Hitomi's form the instant he saw the gremlins from the underworld that had come to take the Hyuga woman's soul away. The living sword killed the little creatures instantly and brought new life into Hitomi, allowing her to continue living to see her newly born child grow. When Hiyashi saw she was indeed alive, he gave Hitomi a loving kiss while Sesshomaru left the room to see his son, who was waiting with Hinata in a nearby room. End flashback. News had soon spread of Sesshomaru's power to save Hitomi from death, and the council soon demanded he share this power with them for future use in terms of saving the lives of their people. Sesshomaru, however, declined, saying that it was not just him that wished to save Hitomi, but his sword as well, since it had a mind of its own, and also chose to save the woman from dying of childbirth. The discussion lasted for another half-hour before Sesshomaru had enough and simply left, knowing that no matter what they threatened, as such threats would be emptier than a soulless body. After that was decided, it was time to turn to the chosen punishment of one Hyuga Neji for the attempted murder of Hyuga Hinata and Namikaze Naruto, which the Hyuga elders wanted to show the accused prodigy leniency. Due to his growing skills in the ways of the gentle fist, the Hyuga elders felt that punishing the boy on account of the growing stress he was under was hardly fair, and moved for Hiyashi to let Neji simply receive a 5-second use of the cage bird seal for his punishment. Sesshomaru, of course, would have been disgusted by this idea and demanded that justice be done not simply for his own son, but for the honor of the Hyuga heiress. Sesshomaru stated that if the Hyuga clan would not punish Neji for his actions against Hinata, then they would have to for his striking the Namikaze heir, and if they did not, then the Hyuga elders would be forced to find other means of compensation out of their own pocket. Sensing the double meaning behind the threat, the Hyuga elders gave in to the demon lord's demands for punishment, and handed Neji over to him to deal with as he saw fit when taking him back to the Namikaze estate for 2 weeks. Many among the branch families were worried that Neji would not come back alive, but Sesshomaru told them he had no intention of killing the Hyuga prodigy, just making him aware of the ramifications of his actions, and promised to return the branch family heir back in one piece. It had done little to ease the minds among the masses of the Hyuga clan, including one Hyuga Hinata, who had been the first to ask for mercy for her cousin's transgressions against Naruto. It wasn't in her nature to hate Neji for what he did, and while she didn't want to betray the trust of her new friend that was Namikaze Naruto, she didn't want the relationship she had with Neji to worsen either. Sesshomaru stated that the fact that Neji was coming back home in 2 weeks with all of his limbs still intact to his body would be mercy enough before taking the boy with him. After that problem was fixed, a new one came from the Hyuga elders pressuring Hinata yet again on account of her recently born sibling, and were also trying to remove Hitomi from the Hyuga clan altogether. The Hyuga elders did not like Hinata very much, just as they didn't like Hitomi, and were less than pleased with the woman survived the fatal pregnancy. They had originally wanted Hiyashi to marry a woman who could keep him in line to their ideals of tradition rather than changing and abolition such traditions of the Hyuga clan. They even tried to end the marriage between the two right after Hanabi was born. They claimed Hitomi was no longer Hiashi's wife, but rather an undead body created by Sesshomaru that needed to be exorcised right away. Hiashi would have none of that and told them to stay out of his personal affairs or he would dissolve the Hyuga Council personally. As for Naruto, he was unsure what Sesshomaru had in mind when he brought Neji back to the Namikaze estate, but was not about to question the Demon Lord's judgment on the matter. It wasn't like he could protest anyway, considering his training regiment had been doubled since he got out of the hospital due to staying there for 2 days under the guard of Maida Guy, Yuhi Kurenai, Mitarashi Anko, Azuki Uago, and her Anbu team. While staying at the hospital, Naruto got a chance to say thanks to Kurenai and Anko for all the help they did in protecting him from the villagers and other shinobi. Kurenai took the apology no problem, but Anko was still new to accepting anything friendly due to her own experiences with the village hating her, so she just gave him a nod before staring out the window. Neither woman had met Sesshomaru personally even when they were both assigned to watch over Naruto, as Maida Guy was already guarding the room while the Demon Lord was taking care of business with the Hyuga clan. However, it was during that time that Naruto got to know everyone guarding him better, and could tell they were nice people that he could trust. Maida Guy had just come back from a B-ranked mission not long before Naruto had been admitted, and in exchange for taking on bodyguard duty for the boy, the Sandame offered to increase the Junin's pay. The man went into a form of interesting words involving flames of youth, which Naruto himself didn't understand, nor did he want to understand at this point considering what the man wore in terms of clothing. Seriously, green spandex was not the way to go for anyone, much less this guy. Fortunately, the man promised to give him taijutsu lessons and how to deal with wearing the weights, while Kurenai offered to help him understand genjutsu. Anko couldn't really offer him anything since she didn't really know what she could teach the kid, except offer to watch him if Sesshomaru had business to take care of that couldn't allow him to have Naruto at his side. Right now Naruto was training hard with Guy, who was showing him his fighting style to use as a secondary taijutsu to Naruto's family's own style. The man with the super thick eyebrows and bowl-shaped haircut explained such a secondary taijutsu stance would be useful in order to throw enemies off guard in a fight when changing between them. It was at that time in which Sesshomaru came back to the Namikaze estate with Neji, who upon looking at Naruto glared at him, as if it was his fault, and the Hyuga prodigy wished to strike the blonde demon vessel again. That was, however, before Sesshomaru suddenly lightly slashed at Neji's back, leaving slightly bleeding wounds on the Hyuga's back. This resulted in Naruto and Guy to stop their training to look at what happened in shock, as Sesshomaru then picked up Neji by the back his neck before throwing him into a far-off training post. Faster than any of the eyes watching could see, Sesshomaru took some rope he had acquired inside the house, and tied Neji to the post with the boy falling forward in pain. For the next 2 weeks you are mine to deal with as I see fit. I will not kill you, I will not cripple you, but I assure you that before your time here is through, I will make you see the truth behind whatever hate clouds your mind, and remove the hate from your soul, said Sesshomaru before taking out Tenseiga and placed the blade on Neji's back, allowing the boy's wounds to heal if to the point of not bleeding to death. You're not going to leave him like that, are you, father? Said Naruto, looking between both Sesshomaru and Neji, hoping that whatever the Demon Lord had planned wouldn't be too harsh for the Hyuga prodigy to handle. Just for now, Naruto. What Neji needs right now is to reflect upon himself while he can before I can make him understand the ramifications of hurting you, my son. So for now continue with your training and then come in when it's time for lunch, said Sesshomaru, who saw the boy nod in understanding yet looked at Neji with an apologetic look. I understand, said Naruto, though in honesty he wanted to free Neji and tell him to get the hell off the grounds, but knew that would infuriate his father, and he couldn't just go against the Demon Lord that saved him from the people outside of the clan walls. Good. Also I requested that girl from the food stand to come here to make you lunch again, said Sesshomaru, since he himself did not understand all the things this world had to offer, though he was getting a solid idea, as time passed, and watched the girl that came into the kitchen work. Yata. In that case I better take things up a notch with my training. Shadow clone jutsu, said Naruto, making a fresh army of clones, which made Guy's mouth drop to the ground, and creating a large hole in the process. Each clone got into a fighting stance aimed at Guy, and the now heavily sweating taijutsu specialist had a feeling he was in for a hard day's worth of youthful training. 1 week later, By the end of the first week, Neji wished he was back home at the Hyuga compound, finding that a demon lord was a harsher master to serve than any of the Hyuga main family ever were. After Sesshomaru freed Neji from the training post, which included starving him the whole day, the demon lord informed the Hyuga prodigy that like back at his clan home he would be a servant here, and total perfection was demanded of him. Anything less than that would mean a harsh punishment from Sesshomaru, regardless of how minor the error Neji created during his 2-week stay as the Namikaze servant. Neji had a total of making of 3 errors, with the first punishment being 3 harsh whippings from Sesshomaru's energy whip attack to the boy's back. The second error resulted in the Hyuga prodigy feeling Sesshomaru's claws digging into his skin, leaving faint marks on his body. The third error resulted in Neji receiving a broken jaw and received no food for the rest of the day while being bound to the training post again to further reflect on his previous behavior back home before Tenseiga was used to heal the jaw. Fortunately, things weren't all bleak as originally believed, as Naruto tried to cheer the boy up and try to make a friend out of him. At first, Neji politely refused the boy's desire to be friends, as he did not want to get too attached to the Namikaze heir. But it seemed that without the blonde's presence life just seemed much bleaker than before. By the end of the first week, Naruto had made Neji smile at least once, and even made the Hyuga prodigy laugh at a joke he heard. It had been hard work to get that much out of the Hyuga prodigy, but in the end it was worth it. "The tea is prepared, Sesshomaru-sama," said Neji, having walked into the demon lord's study, which allowed the man to gaze upon various scrolls ranging from jutsus to seal designs. "Place the tray here. I have something I wish to discuss with you," said Sesshomaru, as he tapped the desk with the clawed tip of his finger to indicate where to place it. "What do you wish to discuss with me, Sesshomaru-sama?" said Neji, placing the tray on the desk and sat down in the chair the demon lord pointed to upon asking the question. "I wanted to know if you learned anything during your stay here at the Namikaze estate, and if you did I want you to tell me freely," said Sesshomaru, looking at Neji, as he leaned back in the plush chair. "I have seen the punishments a demon lord like yourself would and could inflict upon one such as me, which leads me to conclude that my time as a servant to the main family of the Hyuga clan is by far easier," said Neji, hoping that Sesshomaru wouldn't lash out and strike him for what he just said even though he was allowed to speak freely. "I see. What do you think of Naruto? I imagine that him being friendly towards you was the last thing you expected?" said Sesshomaru, gazing at the boy with careful eyes to see if his son made impact on the Hyuga before him. "I admit that I expected your son to show some form of hostility towards me when you were not around to do it yourself, Sesshomaru-sama. But instead he wanted to be friends with me, and for that I am grateful to him," said Neji, seeing the demon lord nod his head in agreement. "My son has suffered long before I entered his life, Neji. You were never betrayed by the one who gave you life as he had been," said Sesshomaru, seeing the Hyuga boy's eyes widen in surprise. "His own mother abandoned him despite him being the Yondaime's son? Why?" said Neji, wondering if he and Naruto were not so different than he originally believed. "That is a talk for another time, Neji, but be mindful of what you just learned about my son, as it is a secret, and a burden on him more than the cage bird seal ever was on you. Next week before you leave, I want to speak with you again to see what else you have been able to learn, and to see if what I've done has borne fruit," said Sesshomaru, waving the boy off to do what he pleased since he was done for the day. "Hokage's office. I see. So there is definitely something your clan wishes to keep from me?" said Sarutobi, looking at the weasel Enbu masked shinobi standing before. "Yes, Hokage-sama. My father is very keen on keeping secrets of the Uchiha clan as just that, secrets. However, I must warn you, Hokage-sama, that if I am to continue to pursue this, my father may become suspicious, and try to do his own form of investigating," said the weasel Anbu, who got a nod from the Hokage, having read the current report from the young boy. "We'll handle that when the time comes, and hopefully it won't come down to that. Until then, continue on with the investigation as planned and report back to me regarding any new developments," said the third Hokage, who received a bow from the Anbu before leaving the office to continue his Anbu duties. "So the Sharingan has a second stage, does it? Kakashi told me he is already starting to try experimenting with one such stage, but this supposed stage my informant mentioned in the Uchiha clan already knows about. Sounds like it is something entirely different from that, or else it would have been done it already." "How troublesome," thought the third Hokage before taking another puff from his pipe and sat back in his chair to think more on this new development. Dango shop. So Kurenai, what do you think of the great Sesshomaru-sama? Said Anko, smiling in a somewhat creepy manner, though it was all in good fun. All I've heard are stories, Anko, you know that. Every time we try to run into him there is always something preventing us from introducing ourselves properly. It's not like we can just go introduce ourselves at his house. It would seem like we're offering to be his wives or something, said Kurenai, though judging from the blushes on the faces of several of the women that heard his name, he must have been quite the handsome man. For a demon lord, that is. You make it sound like it's a bad thing, Kure-chan. Why don't we introduce ourselves? I mean, we are watching over his kid from time to time, so I say let's make an introduction, said Anko, taking a sip of some sake, before she ate some dango. Well, I suppose we could go just to talk to him, since I did promise his son to teach him about genjutsu, but we're using the front door this time. I don't want to have to take out money from my own pocket to fix a window or wall you smash through in order to make an impression, said Kurenai, getting up from her seat and going with Anko to see the demon lord to gather their own thoughts on him. Namikaze Estate. Guy left for the day limping as he did, after having his body hit several times by so many shadow clones of Naruto, and promised to visit the boy in a few days if he wasn't on a mission. Naruto himself waved goodbye to the strange spandex-wearing man before he started heading inside to learn more about being a shinobi and the scrolls in the family library. To Naruto's surprise, Neji was in the room too, looking at certain scrolls that Sesshomaru had permitted him to see concerning various defensive low-ranked jutsus. The demon lord told the Hyuga prodigy that relying on constant short-range combat with their style of gentle fist was a weakness the Hyuga clan needed to have fixed. Just because no one knew of any weakness to the Byakugan yet, didn't mean one didn't exist already, and chances were one did. Hey Neji, I see you're reading up on the latest earth jutsu used for defense, said Naruto, seeing where the scroll came from, since his biological dad had every jutsu in the library categorized in terms of element and ranked by its potency. Yes, I was taking to heart some of the advice Sesshomaru-sama gave me concerning my clan. I have much to make up for, it seems, concerning my hatred for main family, said Neji, putting a hand on his forehead, feeling the cage bird seal on his head, feeling the design of it through his fingertips. Yeah, my dad told me the clean version of that whole thing with Kumo. It's a real shame at what happened to your old man, but you can't blame Hinata for that. She was just 3 years old like me, and it would have been impossible for her to simply stand up against that Kumo guy, said Naruto, seeing the cage bird seal on Neji's head, since Sesshomaru demanded that the seal be visible in the household at all times to remind the boy of how easy he had it back at the Hyuga compound. But why did my father have to go in Hiyashi-sama's place for the exchange? Why didn't Hiyashi make the sacrifice instead of my father? It's not fair, said Neji, looking at Naruto, who could only shrug since he had no real clue why. You could always ask Hiyashi when you get back home next week. Granted, he may not give you a reason right away, but I'm sure there is one. It's probably one of those have to wait until you're older things to understand. Just give it time, and until then be nice to both Hinata and her little sister, said Naruto, since it would be up to Neji to protect those two from harm again once he got back. It is said time heals all wounds, so I must wait until the time is right to know the truth. Thank you, Naruto-sama, said Neji, bowing his head at the boy, who just waved both his hands at the suffix. Please, no, Naruto-sama, or stuff like that. I'm too young to have such things added to my name. Just call me Naruto, or at least Naruto-san. Just because you're being the temporary servant to my adopted father doesn't mean you're mine too. Personally, I think of you more like a friend than anything. All you have to do is be less serious around people and more awake emotionally, said Naruto, before patting the older boy lightly on the back and leaving for Neji to collect his thought on what he just said. Namikaze Estate. Sometime later, the doorbell rang before Neji answered the door and quickly checked with his Byakugan to see who it was, just in case it was secretly an enemy at the door. To his surprise, he saw 2 young Chunin-ranked women waiting at the door, looking slightly nervous for some reason when he opened the door. What could they be doing here? Are they women that wish to court Sesshomaru-sama? Thought Neji, having heard of such things being done with various highly prestigious clans both in and out of Konoha. Hello Hyuga-san, is Sesshomaru-sama home? Said Kurenai, being respectful since she was at the Namikaze Estate and was trying to see a demon lord of all people. He is in his private office. Please come in while I inform him of your arrival, said Neji, sensing no deceit from either woman that he could see when he allowed them in before heading to see his temporary master. Wow, this place is awesome. If I was one of those gold-digging women like the Haruno on the civilian council, I would definitely try to get in this guy's good graces and marry this demon lord, said Anko, jumping over the nearest couch and sitting on it with a sigh at sitting down on something so soft. Anko, don't say such things or else Sesshomaru-sama will think poorly of us for even being here, said Kurenai, who glared at her friend, and even harder after said friend had stuck out her tongue in defiance. Kurenai-san, Anko-san, said Naruto, coming out into the living room, giving them each a hug while giving Anko a longer hug after the woman noticeably winced at the physical contact between them. Hello Naruto. We're waiting for Sesshomaru so we could meet him, said Kurenai, seeing the boy light up when seeing them since they were always nice to him before his adoption by the demon lord. Oh, so that's where Neji was headed. Dad's been really busy when he's not training me. You should have seen me sparring with Guy-sensei. I made so many shadow clones that I whooped his butt good, said Naruto, giving a grin and peace sign at his accomplishment. Really? Wow, at this rate you'll blow away the kids your age at the academy in no time when you attend, said Kurenai, as she hoped to reach the rank of Junin one day to be a sensei herself. I would expect no less from my son in dominating the other children in his class, but I also expect him not to become arrogant in his skills, said Sesshomaru, entering the room with Neji beside him, who took those words to heart, knowing that many people within Konoha, both civilian and shinobi, had become arrogant after the Kyuubi's attack 5 years ago. I wouldn't do that, Dad. How could I make friends if I made them feel inferior? It would just make them hate me in the end, said Naruto, who got a nod from Sesshomaru in full agreement with that assessment. That is good to hear. Now I believe I was told of some guests that had arrived to speak with me, said Sesshomaru, who turned to see the gaping and blushing faces of the two women staring at him in awe. He's gorgious, hot, thought Kurenai and Anko, who couldn't help but admire the demon lord's features and noble-like form. This is Yuhi Kurenai and M something Anko. Her last name is really hard for me when I try to pronounce it, said Naruto, sheepishly rubbing the back of his head, only to be put in a headlock by an embarrassed and slightly angry Anko. M something? How can you not know my name, Squirt? Said Anko, only for Naruto she was holding went poof, making her yelp and jump back onto the couch in surprise. That was a shadow clone? But it seemed to act just like the original that I couldn't even tell the difference, thought Kurenai, wondering what else this kid could do. Neji, could you please find the real Naruto and tell him he needs catch up on his spelling and speaking in terms of complex names, said Sesshomaru, who saw Neji bow his head, and left to find the original among an army of clones. It's an honor to finally meet you, Sesshomaru-sama, said Kurenai, bowing to the demon lord, who seemed to be studying her carefully, making her blush slightly under the man's eyes. My son was right when he said your eyes were pretty, but I believe the term Naruto used did not do them justice, said Sesshomaru, finding her eyes were in fact much pleasant to look at than that of the Uchiha's Sharingan eyes. Now Kurenai couldn't hold back the blush that now covered her face, and she had to look away from the demon lord because of what he said, since most people never even called her eyes pretty and meant it. Sure, Naruto did, but he was a child, and only a child could say such things to her and mean them, while grown men would just say it in order to get into her pants. However, she sensed that Sesshomaru didn't hate her eyes, nor did he seem like the lecherous type, since she had a pretty good pervert detector, having been around Kakashi for some time with him reading that horrible book of his. My name is Mitarashi Anko, said Anko, not wanting to be left out of this little process of introduction. Again, my son was correct about you too. You have the same eyes as he did when I first found him. Interesting, said Sesshomaru, his gaze now on Anko, who couldn't fight back the blush on her face as the demon lord looked at her carefully like he did Kurenai. Anko was once the student of a former leaf shinobi turned trader. Unfortunately, many people in the village don't trust her because of that, and have constantly been giving her a hard time, said Kurenai, who thought it was best if Sesshomaru understood the nature of the reason behind the village's hate for Anko. I see. Once again, the stupidity and arrogance of the Leaf Village does not cease to amaze me, said Sesshomaru before eyeing her neck and looking at the curse seal with slight interest. The last parting gift the Habiteme gave me before backstabbing the village, said Anko, seeing where Sesshomaru's line of sight was aimed at. So that is why the faint smell of snakes is upon you, said Sesshomaru calmly, as he had been slightly curious by this information. Anko herself was confused at how this demon lord could say such a thing without being even remotely disgusted, though considering that the man was a demon lord counted for something. The reason she smelled of snakes was because of the snake Sanin allowing her to sign the snake summoning contract early on and use the shadow snake jutsu from within the confines of her trench coat to ensnare her enemies. Only those like the Inuzuka clan with an enhanced sense of smell, or those that dared to get close enough, who could detect the scent of snakes on her, steered clear. To them, Anko was like the second coming of her traitorous sensei, even though she had been betrayed by the Habi Teme and wanted to be the one to kill him. "You're not offended by it?" said Kurenai, seeing no hint of disgust on the demon lord's face and wondered if he was masking it. "No, I've been offended by worse smells than that of snakes, and compared to them, hers is quite pleasant," said Sesshomaru before sitting down with the women doing so as well. "We apologize if we're interrupting anything. We originally came over to possibly get to know you better, since we are one of the few people the Sandame trusts to watch over your son when you're unable to," said Kurenai, wondering what it was about this man that seemed to make her melt inside. "There is no need for an apology, as it is only natural considering the task you will have in watching over and training of my son in the skills you have, Kurenai-san. As for you, Anko, I wish you to watch over my son while he is around the village, as well as teach him how to keep his mind sharp and focused on his environment. He gained some form of experience with the villagers already, but it lacks focus, so I need you to teach him how to keep his wits about him," said Sesshomaru, knowing that if anyone could do that it was these two. "Can do," said Anko, smiling in a way that reminded Sesshomaru of Naruto when he was excited about something. For the next few hours they talked until it was time for the two women to head home, seeing as they had stuff to do tomorrow. 1 week later. "I can't believe this week went by so fast," said Naruto, leaning on the doorway of Neji's room while the said Hyuga was packing what clothing he had been allowed to take with him from the Hyuga compound to the Namikaze estate. "Yes, this week I found very insightful," said Neji, as if a revelation had been revealed to him, and in truth it had been through Naruto. Neji had thought much about what Sesshomaru had told him during the long yet still very interesting 2 weeks of servitude while under the demon lord. This week Neji had spoken to Naruto about his life before Sesshomaru had adopted him, and was quite shocked at the harsh life the boy had, was quite possibly a living hell. When Neji asked why people did what they did, Naruto just showed him the seal on his stomach, and carefully explained to the Hyuga prodigy what, or rather who, was behind this complex seal design. The Hyuga prodigy was amazed at his and found that Naruto was bound to a cruel form of fate worse than any branch family member ever had. To hold such a burden inside of you, to have little to no support in life, and to be hated by so many was something no one should have to endure. By the end of the week the two boys had formed a bond of mutual respect for one another for what burdens they held, and would do what they could from their ends to lift the other's burden if given the chance. "Remember what you learned here, Neji. Not everyone in the main family act like stuck-up jerks, so just protect those people in your family should you guys ever get attacked," said Naruto, knowing that there were some people were saving among the main family like Hinata and hopefully in the years to come her little sister. "I'll keep that in mind, Naruto," said Neji, shaking the boy's hand before they both exited the room and headed downstairs to meet Sesshomaru, who looked at the Hyuga boy with his soul-piercing like eyes. "Your time here in my service is over, but before I let you leave I have one question for you that you must answer truthfully." "What did you learn?" said Sesshomaru, looking the boy straight in the eye. "That my eyes had been clouded by the hate I felt for main family and directed towards the people of my family that did not deserve it. I was wrong to lash out, I was wrong to make an attempt on Hinata-sama's life, and I learned that I am not alone when it comes to carrying such a heavy burden," said Neji, knowing that Sesshomaru knew that Naruto had told him about the seal that holds the Kyuubi. "Very good. I have spoken to Hiyashi and he has assured me that you will one day learn the truth behind that day 2 years ago. All he asks is that you wait for that day to come," said Sesshomaru, seeing Neji nod his head in agreement. "I'm ready to go home now, Sesshomaru-sama," said Neji, walking up to the demon lord, who nodded in agreement. "I believe you are," said Sesshomaru, with Naruto walking up to the demon lord as well with a grin on his face, knowing that his dad was pleased. Without another word the trio teleported out of the house and to the Hyuga compound. Hyuga compound. Hiyashi and Hinata along with several branch family members awaiting the arrival of the demon lord, wondering if the young branch family heir was still in one piece or quite possibly a shattered mind without a soul. Hinata was beside her father, fidgeting ever so slightly, hoping to see her cousin again and maybe the young boy, who saved her from death's grasp. "Nervous, Hinata?" said Hiyashi, seeing his daughter blush slightly in embarrassment, since it was considered to be improper for a clan such as hers to be nervous around others. "I was just hoping for Naruto-kun to be with Sesshomaru-sama and Neji ni-san when they get here, father," said Hinata, who had dedicated herself to her gentle fist style with more vigor in order to prevent what happened before from reoccurring. Hinata didn't want anyone dying or remotely close to dying for her sake. Within moments, the three individuals everyone was waiting for appeared in a large ball of energy like before, with Sesshomaru looking as stoic as ever, Neji with a smile on his face, and Naruto with a foxy grin that made Hinata blush at the sight of it. When Neji walked over to Hiyashi, the man realized the boy was not hiding his cage bird seal, and that his face no longer held hatred in them for him or Hinata. "Hiyashi-sama, I must apologize for my actions towards Hinata-sama 2 weeks ago. They were not befitting of a branch family member assigned to protect the Hyuga heiress, and I humbly beg for your forgiveness," said Neji, bowing to Hiyashi, making several of the branch family take a sharp intake of breath, since some of them felt sympathetic towards the boy. "The apology is accepted, Neji. I understand what it means to lose a loved one, and it hurt me dearly when I lost my brother that was your father. Give me time, Neji, and I will do everything in my power to make amends for that day," said Hiyashi, who saw Neji nod at his words before hugging the man, shocking many others, and even causing a few Hyuga to faint. "Hey Hinata-chan," said Naruto, walking up to the Hyuga girl, who pressed her fingers together, and blushed even redder at seeing him so up close again. "Hello Naruto-kun," said Hinata, fidgeting a little under his blue eyes that seemed to pull her towards him, though why she couldn't understand. "How's your mom doing?" said Naruto, not knowing if the girl's mother was up and about or still taking care of the new addition to the family. "She's doing just fine, and Hanabi-ne-san is just as energetic as the day she was born," said Hinata, trying to force down the weakness in her legs while being so close to this ball of energy standing before her. "That's awesome. I'm glad Dad could help your mom live. She really loves you and your sister so much," said Naruto, fighting back the hidden sorrow he felt concerning his own mother not loving him, all because of what he held inside. Hinata saw the sadness in his eyes and gave him a soothing hug that shocked Naruto, but was relieved to have it to help take that pain away. "Well, those two are hitting it off quite well," thought Hiyashi, smiling at the sight, knowing she could tease Hinata later if he had the chance, but knowing his wife she wouldn't let him. "Come Naruto, it's time to go," said Sesshomaru, knowing the boy could visit at another time. "Bye Hinata-chan, I'll see if I can come over again if I get another chance," said Naruto, since he really liked his newfound friend and wanted to spend time with her. Hinata hoped he would return soon as well, though for reasons that still eluded her, it was for far deeper feelings of friendship. After a simple wave between the two, Naruto was gone, and Hinata felt a little dizzy from being in such close contact with the boy, yet she missed him already. Hokage Tower meeting room. Am I hearing this right? You want to ban Naruto from being a shinobi when it's time for him to attend the academy? Said the Sandame, seeing the civilian council members nod along with his old teammates from the shinobi council, and Danzo smirking at such a move. Yes, it's clear this demon lord that adopted him is manipulating him into something evil, and if he enters the academy, the boy will spread such corruption to our children, said a civilian council, who looked like he could lose a few pounds if his fat chin was any indication. This matter is not up to the civilian council, nor is it with those on the shinobi council that you brought with you. Whether Sesshomaru-sama chooses to let Naruto enter the academy is entirely up to him, and I doubt he will give in to what you want, since he wants Naruto to be strong. You conflict with his interest, and as such, he may see fit to take it out on all of you, and possibly make an example out of you, said Sarutobi, seeing the members of the civilian council pale at that. Still, Namikaze Naruto is still a civilian, and such still falls under their authority whether he is adopted by a demon lord or not, said Danzo, smirking, seeing his chance to spring his opportunity to get Naruto into route falling into place. True, Naruto is in fact a civilian at the moment, but the civilian council does not have the authority over a demon lord despite his citizenship, since his class far outdoes even mine as Hokage of Konoha. With Naruto as his adopted son, the boy thereby falls under that same category, and therefore cannot be touched by the rules of the civilian council, said Sarutobi, since the title of demon lord was by far much higher than that of a kage. That's absurd. said Homura, who felt it was bad enough to have Sesshomaru in the leaf, but had higher authority over all of them was simply too much to take. Really? You forget, a demon lord is just like a feudal lord to us humans, who like any of them commands respect, and wields great power over all those around him. If you disagree with his status, then I suggest you take it up with him, but know that he is within his right to kill you if you try, said the Sandame, seeing the smirk on Danzo's face turn into a scowl, knowing that whatever plan he had for Naruto that would be supported by the council members in his pocket had gone straight to hell. With those squabbling members of the council out of the way, the old Hokage redirected his focus back to the evil of paperwork while wondering how the Yondaime was able to get it done so easily. At first, the Sandame was happy someone else was suffering with the harsh task of the paperwork, but was shocked to see the Namikaze come out of his office 10 minutes later saying it was taken care of, and went to go with his wife to get some ramen. Man, the once retired Hokage was pissed off when he saw the Yondaime's claim was true. The one secret the Yondaime knew I needed when I came out of retirement, and he just had to take it to his grave, thought Sarutobi bitterly, knowing that if he ever did what the fourth Hokage did in summoning the Shinigami, then he was going to have a little chat with the man, and let out some of that pent-up frustration that he had been building up over the years. Konoha 2 years later. Naruto had come a long way in 2 years manipulating the Kyuubi's demonic chakra and was feeling less of the strain of it after he stopped summoning it. So far Naruto could create a decent extension of his arm from the manipulation of the demonic fox's chakra and with the strength to uproot a tree before incinerating it. Sesshomaru also had Naruto experiment in creating his own energy whip with the demonic chakra, and while the boy had the power to do it after a few weeks of attempting it, the control of the whip was very difficult to do. Naruto also got lessons in genjutsu, which Kurenai during those 2 years explained how to dispel a genjutsu to the boy either by suppressing one's chakra, or breaking them using a high flux of chakra. The first part was near impossible for Naruto to do on account of his current condition, but the second idea was easier than turning on a light switch. All Naruto had to do when in a high-level genjutsu was mold his chakra and let out a pulse from his entire body, which upon doing covered a minimum 10-foot radius around him. As for creating a powerful genjutsu, Kurenai helped Naruto practice the boy's very own creation known as the pervert sphere jutsu on one unsuspecting book-reading pervert. After it was successfully performed on the poor victim, Kakashi couldn't stop twitching after being forced into unconsciousness for 2 days. When Junin Cyclops got treatment from the Yamanaka clan, he would still continue to twitch occasionally when he saw women nearby laughing or when they were pointing at the small round fruits they held in the market area. When several people had asked Kakashi why he would always twitch occasionally, he just said, "You don't want to know," and left before they could ask him anything else. Kurenai and Naruto were laughing hysterically after it had happened. Who knew the infamous Hitaki Kakashi had a fear of having small balls? The Sandame had a headache when he found out Naruto had made that one, with several female shinobi already asking Kurenai to teach them that genjutsu before the old fire shadow had to make both her and Naruto promise not to use or teach it to anyone. It was absolutely necessary that no male found out about this genjutsu, out of sheer fear of them losing their way of perverseness, and he even went so far as to mark it as a mid-S ranked forbidden genjutsu for obvious reasons so neither of the co-creators wouldn't use it for whatever reason. Sarutobi's own super perverted student of a Sannin wouldn't last a chance against it, and to add insult to injury, the said student would probably die from embarrassment if he learned his defeat was at the hands of a 7-year-old child. That last part made the Sandame want to smile at the thought, but he also winced since he too was secretly a pervert as well, though the third Hokage held it in much better than the perverted Sannin ever could. Under Anko's tutelage, the boy was able to keep his mind focused when walking around the village, and was able to detect the trustworthy villagers or shinobi from the arrogant ones. She even helped him with his kunai and shuriken throwing on the targets, showing him spots that while not lethal hitting could make the victim slow down long enough to capture if the mission was to that, instead of killing. Anko then gave him an alternative version of sensory awareness training, where he would be forced to handle a day without one of his key senses like sight, sound, and touch in case such senses were lost to him. During this time frame of 2 years in training with both women, Naruto had formed a bond with both of them, and found that each woman had a lot to offer outside shinobi training. With Kurenai, it was the understanding of the female mind, and how women in general should not be seen merely as objects, but as equals in life no matter what life they took. For Anko, she allowed herself to bond with Naruto on a level of understanding what it means to be alone and have no one be there for you when you need them the most. The former apprentice of the traitorous Sanin found herself acting like normally when she was around Kurenai in private. She became what other people didn't see when she was at the Namikaze estate when she was around Naruto. It was like Anko could be her true self without the worry of being looked down upon, hated for something that wasn't her fault, and/or despised simply because she was the student of the infamous Orochimaru. Still, even with such positive results within a 2-year span, there were still a problem that was rising from time to time with both the villagers and the shinobi populace as a whole. On several occasions through the 2 years, Naruto's birthday during the Kyuubi festival being one of them, had several drunken would-be assassins trying to break into the once-loved Namikaze estate, and attempted to kill the demon lord residing inside of it. The intoxicated fools believed that Sesshomaru was tainting the Yondaime's home with his demonic presences along with the supposed heir to the Namikaze clan. The next day such fools, now dead fools, were later found in Konoha's center square area looking like they had been torn apart into slowly before they died, and were made clear examples not to enter a demon lord's home uninvited. Hokage's office. I see. So you finally were able to find out what the second secret stage for the Sharingan is, said the Sandame looking at the weasel Anbu, who simply nodded before speaking. The reason my father wants it a secret is because he's waiting for the day you will die, Hokage-sama. Once you become the late third Hokage, Danzo will make an attempt at positioning himself as, ironically as it sounds, your newest successor to the title of Fire Shadow, and create an alliance with the Uchiha clan in order to begin the process of creating the second coming of Uchiha Madara. In order to do that, they need an Uchiha with the original complete set of Sharingan eyes, and have him kill his best friend to activate the next stage of the Sharingan. I think this secret stage, depending on the Uchiha wielder's strength, has the power to do the opposite of what the Shoden could do with his power in calming a demon lord. Though I'm not exactly certain, but the evidence I have gathered so far seems to support it. I would have gotten more, but I believe that my father is beginning to suspect something of me, and will probably have someone within the clan investigate me soon, said the weasel Anbu, who got a nod from the Hokage. I see. I'll have Sesshomaru-sama bring in Naruto so we can find out more about that day and see just who it was with Uchiha blood managed to do this. It may give me leverage with the council and the public if they knew that there were other factors that caused the demon lord to attack. If anything, it will take most of the hostility off of Naruto. You are dismissed, Itachi, said the third Hokage, who got a nod from the Itachi before leaving the room. Naruto's mindscape. So you figured it out. It took you long enough, said the Kyuubi staring at Sesshomaru and Naruto, who simply scowled at the large demonic fox. Yeah, well, if you had just told us we could have done more with it sooner, you baka fox, said Naruto, who received a light tap on his head from his father for those words since he was addressing another demon lord. True, but then where is the fun in that? Just because you hairless apes think you are so smart doesn't mean you are. Someone has to make you work for this knowledge, and unlike what Kami did for your species centuries ago, I have absolutely no intention of just handing it to you on a silver platter, and expect your so-called free will that he gave you to help keep things balanced. I swear he give you feces-throwing monkeys a lot more credit than I do, said Kyuubi, growling at the boy, who stuck his tongue out at the demon fox. As much as this little chat is somewhat mildly entertaining, we came here to offer you a proposition you might find interesting, said Sesshomaru, seeing the fox turn its red-eyed gaze towards him. Really? I think that's highly unlikely given my current predicament, but I suppose out of the sheer curiosity of it all I'll bite and see what this offer is, said Kyuubi, tilting its head as it spoke. I want you to assist my son in his training when I cannot, or one of his shinobi teachers is unavailable to him, said Sesshomaru, seeing the Kyuubi's eyes narrow at him for what was being demanded of its time. That's it? You want me to help this little rodent, who should be kissing my claws for the times that I allowed him to live after the beatings he's endured, and let him have more control over my power? What's it in for me that would make me even consider the possibility that I would want to help you? Said Kyuubi, knowing that if there was something he could get out of this deal, it better be a damn good thing. You want revenge, I assume? That is what we are offering you. Revenge against the one who manipulated you, a demon lord as powerful as yourself, into doing something that was against your will, and forcing you to be sealed away inside this boy afterwards, said Sesshomaru, who saw the Kyuubi narrow its fire-filled eyes, and drew its face to the bars, growling at the two that stood before it. Yes, such a mortal should have that kind of power, much less have a way to achieve the ways of immortality that defies the rules of kami. At least with the Shodem, now he understood the balance, and out of all the humans I have encountered, I find he is the one I have come to respect the most. You have yourself a deal. In exchange for this training I want Uchiha Madara dead. I'll even help you achieve that goal by training the kid in my fox powers, provided that it is the kid, who is the one to deliver the death blow himself. And along with one other thing that must be done in order to solidify this agreement, said Kyuubi, seeing Sesshomaru narrow his eyes now and Naruto looking suspicious of the fox. What other thing is there that you want? It's sure as hell not going to be freedom, said Naruto, folding his arms to his chest and looking at Kyuubi, looking slightly insulted. As tempting as that would be, I can't, given this seal of the Shinigami, and while the thought of seeing you explode before I kill your village does indeed make me drool with bloodlust, I have thought of something almost as satisfying as that. Something that will be done by you, Sesshomaru, or at least someone in my name within 1 year's time, said Kyuubi, his bloodlust growing at the thought of what he had in mind. What do you have in mind? Said Sesshomaru, watching Kyuubi with calculating eyes, as he thought of what the fox may want. The entire Uchiha clan must die. They must be wiped out from existence and nature. Any one of them could rise or sire the next Madara, and one of him is bad enough in this world. From the eldest member to weakest of children, this clan must die within a time span of anywhere within 1 year from now, when the moon turns blood red. Do this and I will train boy in my demon fox arts of illusions, manipulation of the elements themselves, and other forms of knowledge I possess, said Kyuubi, who saw Naruto look at Sesshomaru, who was deep in thought himself, given this would weaken Konoha for some time, and possibly make things slightly more difficult for him with Naruto, since the Dam Council will want him to help keep their village strong. I must inform the Hokage of this part of the deal before anything is finalized, but I think given the situation, he will agree to the idea, said Sesshomaru before he exited the boy's mindscape. Real-world Hokage's office 20 minutes later. I'm seriously getting too old for this shit, said the Hokage, mumbling more to himself than the two people in front of him. Do you want to go through with what the Kyuubi desires from us in terms of binding the deal? Said Sesshomaru, knowing that this decision could affect him and Konoha. What choice do I have in that matter? The Uchiha clan wants to make a second Uchiha Madara, and from what you just told me, the original one is still alive through some form of immortality that Orochimaru would love to get his hands on. Not only that, but I've been hearing faint rumors of an organization on the move asking for information on certain people like Naruto, and such a weakening of our forces internally could prompt them to turn their attention here, said the Sandaime, seeing Naruto flinch at the third's words about others like him. You said you had an Uchiha loyal to you, correct? Said Sesshomaru, tapping his fingers on the end part of the arm from the chair he was sitting on. Yes, but his father is starting to become suspicious of him, said the Sandaime, frowning and wondering what the Demon Lord was thinking. Let the man become suspicious. Whoever is sent to investigate your Uchiha spy among its ranks will be close to him in order to gain his trust. When the time is right, have your spy kill the one watching him, and then soon after set him loose upon the Uchiha clan. After what has happened becomes public knowledge throughout the other countries, have him seek out this shadowy organization in the hopes that they can protect him and make him stronger. He will be our spy on the inside, said Sesshomaru, who knew Itachi was the spy, but decided not to tell Naruto since it had nothing to do with him at the moment. The Sandaime frowned while considering this course of action with deep thought, and all things considered, the super-intelligent Demon Lord did have a point in that regard. With the Uchiha clan gone, so would Danzo's attempt at an alliance with them, and while the Uchiha clan would be decimated, it would give the third a helpful spy in this shadowy organization Jiraiya had started tracking. The Toad Sannin only started investigating it a few months ago since he learned Orochimaru had joined it, but the spy network didn't have a solid connection to any of its higher-ups. Given Itachi's skills already as a shinobi, the boy would become a prime candidate to be one of its members, and hopefully find out what the group wants demon vessels for. You said the Kyuubi wants it within a year, correct? I'll set things in motion with my spy so he does it on or around the day in question of the blood-red moon. Though to ensure there is still hope in this village afterwards, I may have it so there is only one survivor of his choice, and use as bait to lure out our enemies, said Sarutobi, knowing that many of bloodline-type clans that had been reduced to such low numbers for whatever reason in various shinobi villages had been sometimes captured by other villages. The Kyuubi may not like that, but I think he will consider it, as long as the surviving Uchiha is a weak runt among the clan's stock, said Sesshomaru, since it would probably amuse the fox demon to see the Uchiha clan suffer with the hopes of its supposed revival being in the hands of a weak Uchiha clan member. I take it up with my spy, though I'm sure several members on both councils will want to spoil the chosen Uchiha survivor silly to make him strong, said the Sandame, to which Sesshomaru scoffed at, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Such things will make the child arrogant and believe he is superior to others. Do what you can to keep the council in check and remind them that arrogance is the greatest of weakness among the human race, said Sesshomaru before rising from his seat with Naruto following shortly after him. I'm sure if they found such words came from you they will take them to heart, said the Sandame with a hint of sarcasm in his voice before he sighed as the Demon Lord and his son were no longer in his office. Letting out a sigh, the old fire shadow summoned a low-level monkey summons to send a message to his super pervert of a student to inform him of what was going to happen in 1 year. Sarutobi wished he could get Tsunade back to the village as well, but he knew she'd pound any summons that went after her, and thus preventing any means of him ever reaching her. Maybe I should send Sesshomaru to hunt her down? As if he would do it. No, the time isn't right, and Naruto still needs to gain more allies before he can stray away from the protection of his adopted father of a demon lord, thought the Sandame, wishing that Kushina had not fallen into her own madness and denied Naruto the mother he always wanted. To his credit, Sarutobi did blush slightly at the thought of the 2 substitutes the boy had acquired in the past 2 years for that role, and the old Hokage knew it would make Jiraiya jealous to no end if the super pervert ever found out. Naruto was excited that he was starting his first day at the Ninja Academy, as he would meet new friends, and perhaps show some of the people that hate him that he was not all that they believed. Sesshomaru told him that to be wary of the teachers at the academy, as they may try to sabotage his progress, or give him false information to make him fail. Naruto took those words to heart, since he knew how much the people of the village hated him and wished for him to fail at learning anything so he wouldn't be strong enough to defend himself when he got older. Naruto had already and still was being trained on brief occasions with several shinobi, who were already experts in specific fields of being a shinobi, and when he wasn't learning from them he was learning at home. Naruto had no doubt that he would make Sesshomaru proud and become the elite among his classmates, but at the same time he had to remember not to let it get to his head. Of course, there had been a ceremony done by the Hokage to induct the new generation of potential shinobi into the academy, with Sesshomaru himself attending. With the names being read off, many clapped for their sons and daughters, believing their children would make a fine contribution to the village as a shinobi, or at least make the attempt at it. It was when Naruto's names was announced that things got cold, as most of the people did not cheer, and even tried to throw things at him had Sesshomaru and, shockingly enough, Naruto not used their energy whips to destroy the things they threw at him. Those said offenders were then taken by Anbu to Ibiki and Anko for interrogation so they could find out just who else hated Naruto and if any of them were teachers at the school. The adults were scared by this demonstration of Sesshomaru's power, and even more so by Naruto's, as his energy whip looked like it was made up of fire. The children were in awe at the both of them, since they had never seen or heard anything like that in terms of jutsus. Among the group of children was Hinata, who was proud of Naruto for sticking up for himself against those stupid villagers. Another kid watching with the opposite and more negative emotion was Uchiha Sasuke, who felt jealous that this kid was showing off his skills. This kid is going to be troublesome, just like Dad said he would be. Though that doesn't explain why Mom hit him in the head with a rolling pin. Maybe it's that time of the month Dad warned me about, thought Nara Shikamaru, since all Nara males were warned at a very young age about women and their tempers. That was pretty cool. Maybe he can be my friend like Shikamaru, thought Akamichi Choji, who had been eating chips only to stop when he saw Naruto and Sesshomaru use the energy whip technique they each had. Mom said he was just the container, but it's because of the Kyuubi that Dad is dead. Mom may have found her peace in losing him, but I won't until I can beat and humiliate that baka in front of everyone, thought Kiba, who was seething at the demon technique the two used, and wished he had the strength to kill the blonde. Mom said to stay away from him. That he's evil or something, thought Sakura, who after seeing that display of power believed her mother was right. Dad said to nice to him and become his friend. He is kind of cute, so why not? Thought Ino, who liked the whisker marks on his face, wondering if it was part of a bloodline. My bugs tell me he is powerful for his age, and father said I should respect him as well as his adopted father of a demon lord. Judging from the attack Naruto just used, he was somehow able to use demonic power as Sesshomaru-sama. Logically, that is not possible, but that still doesn't mean I cannot collect data from this, and learn how Naruto can do it, thought Shino, seeing the regal figure of Sesshomaru nodding his head towards his adopted son for a job well done using the energy whip. If we will have no more interruptions, I hereby induct this generation of children into the Ninja Academy in the hopes they will one day help protect the village from our enemies, said Sarutobi, getting claps from the audience, though he would make sure that those that were taken away were milked dry of any and all information they may hold by Ibiki. The academy was filled with all sorts of kids wishing to make their parents proud, but as the days progressed, Naruto could clearly see which students would pass and the ones that would later fail. Some of the kids thought it would cool to be a shinobi so they could become rich and famous for their heroic deeds that were constantly playing out in their own childhood minds. Those that came from shinobi upbringings knew from their own parents or their clans that the shinobi life was hard work, and you had to really want it to become it. Most of the girls just wanted to shinobi because of Sasuke, who they found dreamy, and formed a fan club to show their support for him. Naruto thought such girls were going to be nothing but trouble, as he had often heard Kurenai and Anko on occasion stating that the once great reputation of female shinobi had been tainted due to fangirls. It was soon apparent to Naruto that these fangirls were the said group, having formed a club for the Uchiha boy. The head of this Uchiha fan club was the boy's most fanatical fangirl known as Haruno Sakura, who believed that the boy was a gift from Kami, and should be praised for his clan's greatness. As the days went by, Sakura also began hating Naruto like her mother had wanted, and tried to slander the Namikaze name, calling the clan as a whole a family of demon-loving whores. Her constant attempt at slander had earned her many detentions for her rude comments and was nearly sent to the hospital when Naruto sent killer intent her way, making the girl nearly have a seizure in the process. Several teachers had tried to punish the boy for his misgiving, but with Hinata being a witness to Sakura's misdoings, and several other students, they couldn't. Mrs. Haruno had a fit of course when she found out and demanded that Naruto pay both physically and financially for his crimes against her innocent angel. Sarutobi stated that if he allowed such a thing to happen, then all of those that hurt Naruto in the past would have to go through the same things, and pay the boy in both manners the councilwoman spoke of. Add to the simple fact that Sesshomaru would quite possibly unleash a path of bloody destruction upon Konoha that none of the shinobi in the village could stop, also made it imperative not to bring up charges against the Namikaze heir. Still, despite these certain setbacks, Naruto had still made friends with Shino, Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino, even though she was slowly turning to the way of the fangirl like Sakura. Hinata was already his friend, though he was slightly curious as to her increase in facial color when she looked at him shyly from time to time. He had asked about what it meant to Sesshomaru one day out of curiosity, but the demon lord simply smirked, and told the boy he would know when he was older. At least, Sesshomaru hoped the boy would know when he was older. However, Naruto had more important things to worry about than that of possible future love interests, even if he was unaware of who had an interest in him. Within the first several months leading into the academy, some of the teachers were becoming a pain in his side. They were deliberately trying to make the boy fail by asking him questions no normal child attending could answer, and even tried to find ways to take off points on his test for the smallest things. However, much to the surprise of the other students, and the anger of the biased teachers, the boy answered all questions correctly without any room for error. As the rankings went halfway through the first year, Naruto proudly held Rookie of the Year, Hinata held second place, and Sasuke was, infuriatingly, in third. The supposed Uchiha prodigy hated being in his brother Itachi's shadow and wished he was as strong as his big brother. Everyone always called him Itachi's brother, rather than just simply acknowledge him as Uchiha Sasuke, and expected great things from him. Several teachers had gone so far as to offer Sasuke private lessons to help him rise above both Hinata and Naruto, but the increasingly growing in arrogance of an Uchiha just pushed them away, believing that he could do things alone by himself. Kiba was no better in terms of his relationship with Naruto, as he along with his loyal pet Akamaru were always in class trying to start fights with the Namikaze, and then pin the blame on the blonde boy. The Inuzuka even went so far as to secretly bribe the older kids at the academy to fight the Namikaze heir to show the boy was all bark and no bite. The end result was the said older classman being sent to the hospital with one having his arm broken, the second boy had 2 broken ribs with a third one cracked on the opposite side, and the poor third classman unable to return due to several spinal fractures. Though it didn't matter if the 3 boys returned or not, as they were going to be expelled for the times they had been caught multiple times for cheating on tests, and due to all the fights they started with other students. It was almost quite fitting that this fight with Naruto was the last one in every sense of the word for them. So what do you guys think of today's taijutsu exam? Said Choji eating a bag of chips, as he walled along with the others outside to test themselves in spars, and grow stronger under the careful eyes of the academy teachers. It's going to be troublesome. Knowing my luck I'll have to fight someone like Kiba or even Sasuke. If I do and they win I'll never hear the end of it from my mom. She got the extra strength frying pan today that she ordered from the Strong Wife catalog she always gets every month, said Shikamaru, who shuddered at all the things his mom was going to do to him, and his whipped old man when she grasped it in her hands. Just hope for the best, Shikamaru. If you get me as an opponent I'll go easy on you, said Naruto, since he knew of his friend's laziness and the brilliance he tried to hide that was a big thing with the Nara clan. Thanks Naruto, but even your luck can't break my misfortune, said Shikamaru, as one of their instructors named Mizuki placed everyone against the other. Okay class, get into your assigned spaces for sparring. Naruto, since you seem so good at sparring we're going to have you fight in a 2-on-1 fight with Uchiha Sasuke and Inuzuka Kiba, said Mizuki inwardly smirking since Sakura's mother had sent a doctor's note stating her daughter was under the weather and would have to miss class. That and the Haruno woman didn't want her daughter mingling with the demon today since she felt it was beneath the family to even have a child in the same class as him. Let's go then, said Naruto getting into fighting stance, his feet moving left to right to keep his muscles constantly active. You're going down, loser. I don't care if you are the Yondaimi's son, you're nothing compared to an Uchiha, said Sasuke getting into the standard academy fighting stance while Kiba went into a sloppy form of the Inuzuka style. If the Uchihas are so great then how come not one of them is a Hokage? Said Naruto grinning a fox-like grin at Sasuke, who scowled at the boy before him. It's time you ate dirt and learned your place in life, Namikaze, said Kiba angrily at the blonde, believing that he was stronger than Naruto and charged in first while trying to use his still developing way of fighting against the opposition's own. Naruto moved out of Kiba's way, as well as the flying kick Sasuke tried to land on him behind his back, brought his hands up to motion them to try again. And again they tried, only for Naruto to dodge their attacks separately or when they came at him at the same time. Soon both of Naruto's opponents were on opposite side of him and charging at him with the full intent of finally landing a hit on the blonde. At the last second, Naruto bent backwards, causing Sasuke and Kiba to hit each other in the face, and breaking both their jaws along with losing several teeth in the process. Beating your opponent is easy, but forcing him to beat himself into submission is hard, said Naruto, as Sesshomaru had told him that during a session in fighting tactics. Naruto, you failed the taijutsu exam portion of today because you didn't fight back. I don't care what your dad says, you have to fight back, and since you didn't you can explain to him how you failed today's lesson, said Mizuki, smirking with a sense of superiority at winning a victory over the demon. Really, Mizuki? I thought the objective of a shinobi is to be unorthodox in his or her own way of fighting, said the Hokage, shocking everyone at his sudden appearance. Sandaime-sama? What do we owe this incredible honor of you gracing us with your presence? Said Mizuki, bowing his head, but inwardly was seething inside at the man's sudden appearance. It's a funny story actually. You see, I was doing paperwork, when I had a sudden urge or need rather to leave my office to give a well-overdue surprise inspection of the academy. Though judging how you failed a student for defeating not one, but two opponents in a fight, and without fighting back is a surprise in itself, said the Sandaime, letting a brief flash of annoyance come across his eyes that made Mizuki uncomfortable. Can you override Mizuki-sensei's decisions to fail Naruto-kun, Sandaime-sama? Said Hinata, who didn't want the boy to fail because of how he won the fight. Of course, young Hyuga. I think Naruto passes with high marks for winning in a 2-on-1 fight, said the Hokage while Naruto gave a thumbs up to Hinata for helping him while the said girl blushed slightly at his praise. That's not fair. Naruto deserves to fail for making the Inu Baka hit Sasuke-kun, said the group of fangirls, who had watched the whole thing in horror. Are you questioning the authority of the Hokage? That could lead to treason and quite possibly punishment by death, said the Hokage, making the fangirls shut their mouths at his words. By the day's end, Mizuki had been reprimanded for his way of grading, and told not to do it again or there would be hell to pay. Naruto walked out of the ninja academy seeing his adopted Sesshomaru waiting for him like most parents would their kids, and smiled at the demon lord before telling him about his day. Sesshomaru was proud of the boy for using his teaching in winning the 2-on-1 fight and took the boy out to get some ramen to celebrate. Uchiha Sasuke looked at the two walking away and glared at the blonde before heading to the hospital to fix his jaw before heading home to talk to his father. Sasuke wanted his father's approval, and the only way to get it was to be stronger than anyone else at the academy. As Sasuke walked to the hospital, the sun was slowly setting, which would soon give rise to the full moon, and on this day of days a great event would occur. It would be so great that it would be whispered for years to come, and be given one simple title in the history books. The Uchiha clan slaughter. Uchiha clan district. It was finally time. Uchiha Itachi watched silently, as the Uchiha, both the young as well as the old, walked to the meeting room, the Uchiha estate. Itachi's father had become suspicious of his actions for a while now and had even ordered the spy's best friend to follow him to find out what it was that the eldest the clan head's children was doing. If one asked where Itachi's best friend was now and had the proper shinobi level of clearance, which was quite high, the response would have been 6 feet under after the body recovered floating down the river, and with his lungs filled with water. When the order from the Hokage was given for Itachi to do this, he was hesitant at first, because not only to do this as an order by the Fire Shadow, but to do it in the name of the demon the Yondaime had sealed away. However, when he learned that the Kyuubi was brought to destroy Konoha by the once thought dead Uchiha clan founder, it soon put things in a whole new perspective, and Itachi felt that in order for balance to be properly achieved, his clan needed to be wiped out. However, thanks to a small technicality, there would be more than one Uchiha survivor that day, as Itachi had used his Sharingan and its powers of persuasion to learn some interesting information concerning his mother. While Itachi was sure the Kyuubi would be less than pleased with this slight alteration to the deal, it would ensure someone kept an eye on his little brother, who Itachi had admitted to the Hokage. The 8-year-old was the runt of the entire family, and would be the one spared during the slaughter. Sasuke, you will one day come to see the truth with your own eyes, and I hope that in that moment you will not fall to the darkness like the rest of our family, thought Itachi, though he had his doubts that Sasuke would fully understand the reason. Slowly, the moon had begun to rise, as expected, with the moon becoming blood red, and looked almost ironically like a single Sharingan eye. It was time for the massacre to begin. Namikaze Estate. Sesshomaru was in the master bedroom with the doors open to the well-sized balcony and stepped out into the platform to admire the night sky. It had been a few years now since he set up residence in this place, and while he was still getting used to the various things this world had to offer, it was proving to be an entertaining experience. Right now his thoughts drifted to Rin and how he missed her cheery face as she would smile around him while trying to get him to open up, or her singing that would secretly melt his frosted heart as time passed. He promised himself he would see her again, talk to her again, and show that after so much time passed he still loved her as a father loved his child. The time, however, was not right, and until Naruto had secured a strong enough footing to let him depart for a certain amount of time back to his first adopted child, he would stay in the Leaf Village to protect his second charge. It was then he noticed the bloody-colored moon and smirked at it. The Uchiha clan will fall and further balance will be restored to this world. However, even after all I have done, I sense the disturbance has only retreated back slightly, and has yet to be pushed back further than I wish it to be. No matter, as long as Naruto is strong enough to handle the challenges that await him when I am not around, I can rest my demon soul knowing that this place is in good hands. I see a lot of Inuyasha in him, yet Naruto has learned at a young age to control his emotions rather than be an unorthodox ball of energy, and that will help him in the long run, thought Sesshomaru before his ears caught the silent sound of tiny footsteps walking behind him. "Hey Dad, can I ask you a question?" said Naruto, hoping he wasn't disturbing the demon lord from his thoughts. As long as it's not a stupid one, said Sesshomaru, turning slightly to face the blonde-haired boy. Okay, I was thinking about this the other day about this when we passed that cool-looking weapons shop. I know it will be a long time before I can even having a sword of my own, but I was wondering if I would get a demonic sword like your token or maybe something like Tenseiga when I got older, said Naruto, wondering what his father's take was on this question. Sesshomaru was so surprised by the question he raised an eyebrow and turned to face the young blonde with an expression of slight curiosity. Sure, the boy would eventually need something else in his arsenal and could have a sword later on after practicing with normal human ones, but a demonic sword? That in itself was a bit much even for his adopted son, and Sesshomaru wondered how he could tell Naruto that he didn't believe in the boy to a degree that the child could handle a demonic sword? He couldn't lie. By the eyes of Kami, he couldn't lie to this boy, who he had called a son in name, and in some demonic sense it was in spirit as well. A demonic sword needs a demon swordsmith to make such weapon possible for use, and even then it requires certain elements that make up the properties of the blade. Even after a weapon is forged, it may decide to refuse the original owner it was intended for and find someone else it deems worthy of its power. I don't know if such a weapon could ever be yours, and even if it did, its power may one day overpower your own if it's strong enough. Until I see how strong you become by your 12th birthday, I cannot permit you to wield demonic blade without my supervision or permission, said Sesshomaru, who saw the boy wanting to protest the decision even though the demon lord was right. But Tokijin didn't corrupt me, said Naruto, looking at Sesshomaru to explain that event, which allowed him to take the life of his hate-filled mother. I was there as well, Naruto, so the sword dared not take control in my presence, and even if I wasn't there, the sword didn't take over because you had channeled just enough of the demon fox's own power to combine with your to push it away from such a task. You are strong, Naruto. Do not mistake me deny you a demonic sword as a sign of weakness, but rather a father siding on the air of caution for his son, and if you prove yourself when you are older by showing me you are in fact strong enough to have one, then I will make the necessary preparations to have an old friend of mine make you demon sword, said Sesshomaru, knowing it was a hard truth to hear, but the demon lord knew that Naruto would see that he was right. So all I have to do is prove to you that I am strong enough to wield a demonic sword and I can have one. Right? Said Naruto, wanting to make sure he heard Sesshomaru right. If you wish to make what I said simple sounding, then yes. If you can show me you are strong enough to handle a demonic sword by the end of your 12th birthday, I will see to it that you get a sword of demonic power made just for you, said Sesshomaru, seeing this as a good motivator for Naruto push himself further. Naruto's eyes lit up with hope and rushed over to Sesshomaru before hugging his leg in gratitude for giving him this opportunity. After a few minutes of affection, Naruto bowed to Sesshomaru saying good night, and walked out of the room to go to bed. As for Sesshomaru, he turned to face the direction of the Uchiha district, and smirked at the bloodbath that was no doubt unfolding in that area of Konoha right now. Uchiha district. Itachi? What is the meaning of this? Said Fugaku, glaring at his oldest son, as he saw the young shinobi slaughter so many of his kin. For someone who is supposed to be perceptive with his eyes, Sharingan or not, you are very narrow-minded in not seeing the truth. With the exception of Sasuke and us, every other Uchiha of our clan is now dead. I am well aware of your talks with Danzo about an alliance to one day make Konoha an imperial dictatorship with the Uchiha clan at the forefront of it. The Hokage knows of this as well and has ordered me to wipe away all that threatens Konoha from its enemies inside its walls. It's time to die, said Itachi before he beheaded his father just as the doors behind him opened up, and one Uchiha Sasuke entered the room. Brother? What's going on? Said Sasuke, shocked at seeing his father and fellow clan members now dead. Sasuke, run! Said Uchiha Makoto, who was the mother of the two boys in the room, and before she could plead more she was hit from behind with the back of the hilt from Itachi's sword. Mom! Said Sasuke, frozen in fright before he tried to run away out of sheer fear for his own life, only to bump into Itachi, who had moved in front of him. Have you no pride as an Uchiha, little brother? Running like a coward when you should try to stand and fight. At least mother had the courage to tell you to run to safety at the risk of her own life, but you didn't ignore her, you just ran like a coward, and cried the entire time. You truly are weak, Sasuke, said Itachi, anger at his brother for being so damn weak while thinking just like the rest of this damn clan. Seeing that his brother needed to be taught a lesson to make himself into a better person, Itachi activating his Sharingan Eyes second stage and hit Sasuke with Tsukuyomi. After Itachi finished, he headed quickly for the Hokage's office to report what he had done, and then start the next part of the mission. Spying on Akatsuki as one of its members. A few days later, the next day of the Uchiha massacre had rippled through Konoha like a hurricane to an island, making some people fear that Leaf Village was on the road to ruin. Danzo and several of the council had tried to blame this on Sesshomaru, saying the Demon Lord was a bad omen on the village. Others surprisingly disagreed, since it was Itachi after all, who committed this horrible deed, and said that the Sesshomaru's presence in Konoha was now needed more than ever to keep villages like Iwa, Kumo, and the recently rumored Sound Village that had just popped up at bay. With the only survivors being Uchiha Makoto and her youngest son Sasuke, the councils wanted to make the boy powerful enough to avenge his clan before reviving it. They had planned on Makoto to eventually help with that, but according to the medical records that Sarutobi showed them, the woman had complications with Sasuke, and resulted in her not being able to have children ever again. That hurt Makoto, but after the meeting, she spoke to Sarutobi about her late husband's dealing, which she did not approve of, and learned it was because of inability to have children that she was spared. Sarutobi told her to keep an eye on her second-born child, telling her that he must not become arrogant, and consumed in the thought of wanting power only for his selfish desires. The old man had let it happen to Orochimaru years before, and he didn't want it happening to the Uchiha, with the possibility of creating a second Uchiha Madara. The woman complied with the Hokage's request, since she didn't want the world covered in darkness like Madara or her husband wanted. As for Sasuke, he came out of his condition slowly within 2 weeks of being in a comatose state, the help of the Yamanaka clan, though it wasn't easy, and when the boy woke up it seemed that there was a change about the boy. A change that several people did not like, but could not do much about, since many called Sasuke the last Uchiha, for being the last loyal male Uchiha, and would try to spoil the boy silly. Makoto tried her best to keep her son's arrogance at bay, but she only seemed to slow it down only by a fraction, and nothing more. When the last Uchiha re-entered the academy, his fangirls, which had somehow been doubled because of his status, were always swarming over him for attention, and as with all fangirls, they believed the boy could do no wrong. They believed all that threatened their image of him was their enemy and needed to be hated with every fiber of their being regardless of the consequences. To them, Namikaze Naruto was such a threat. To Naruto, they were becoming a growing annoyance, as they constantly tried to heckle, shriek, and basically get their way in order to make Naruto quit wanting to be a shinobi. Of course it didn't work against Naruto, considering they were all weak, with the ones that were strong from the older class knowing better than to fight a boy who could create a whip of fiery chakra from his fingertips. Hinata was also a major factor as well, as she had taken it upon herself to defend her friend from the army of fangirls that just wanted to beat on him in order to please the Uchiha boy. Naruto was glad that Hinata was around, since he didn't like beating up girls who were weak, even if they were the Uchiha's fangirls, and besides it would make Sesshomaru frown upon him doing something that tainted both their names. Strangely enough, Naruto found that for every group of people that hated him, he got at least one friend out of the ordeal. And this fact proved to be the truth one day when the blonde vessel encountered a boy that was hitting a training post harshly. "Hey," said Naruto, seeing the boy turn to face him with sweat running heavily down the kid's forehead and face from trying to beat up the training post. "Hello, you are Namikaze Naruto, correct? I have heard many things about you from the people of the village," said the boy, seeing the blonde nod at the mentioning of his name. "Yep, got it right and on the first try. What's your name?" said Naruto, walking up to the boy, knowing he had seen the kid somewhere before during the classes that had the lower and upper students learn in the same room. "My name is Rock Lee. As you can see, I was training hard in my taijutsu," said Lee before he turned to fact the training post to continue. "So you're in the academy like me. I haven't seen you around much, probably because you are in the upper class. Have you seen a friend of mine there named Neji?" said Naruto, casually leaning his shoulder on a training post a few feet away from the one Lee was hitting. "Yes, he is considered a prodigy and is foreseen as the Rookie of the Year for when he officially graduates from the academy," said Lee, hitting the training post with a little more kick at the mention of Neji's name. "What rank are you in your class? From the way you're working hard, I figured you had to be at least in the middle of them somewhere," said Naruto, only to see surprise on the other boy's face before it turned to sadness. "No, I am unfortunately the dead last, said Lee, expecting the boy to laugh at him and call him a loser like many others did in the past. You are? How? Said Naruto, surprised since he could tell the boy really worked hard and wanted to be a shinobi badly to prove his worth. For some reason I cannot use chakra, so I cannot use genjutsu or ninjutsu, which means all I can do is focus on my taijutsu, said Lee, doubling his efforts on beating the training post. That sucks, dude. I have plenty of chakra than most Junins have in their prime, but if I could I'd gladly give you some to help you out, though when you think about it, you are probably better off without those two handicaps, said Naruto, getting into a thinking pose while Lee just looked at him like had a demonic head. Better off? Said Lee, confused at Naruto's words. Well, I'm no expert or anything, but I have been doing a lot of training since Demon Lord of Adad Sesshomaru adopted me so I could take my family's last name. Anyway, what I'm saying is that while you can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu, it doesn't make you as weak as you think. From what I know of genjutsu from reading in scrolls in my clan house and a promising genjutsu specialist of a sensei, I think your lack of chakra in your body prevents you from being hit by genjutsu. As for ninjutsu, while shinobi are making hand signs and molding chakra, you could hit them with your taijutsu to beat them up, said Naruto, seeing Lee's eyes widen at this news. Are you sure, Naruto-san? Said Lee, hoping this wasn't some kind of cruel joke. All you really need, Lee, is a good teacher to help you with taijutsu, and I just happen to know the right person to do it. He's teaching me his fighting style as a secondary style to help me interchange with my clan's own. He's coming by the estate later today, and I'm sure he would be more than happy to teach you a few things to help you out. Though a word of warning, his choice of clothing is not exactly pleasant on the eyes when you first meet him. If you don't know where the Namikaze estate is, ask Neji and he'll tell, if not show you, said Naruto before walking off, leaving a stunned Rock Lee wondering if he was being messed with or if this offer was for real. Lee hoped it was for real. Naruto's mindscape hours later. What do you mean 2 Uchihas are alive? The deal was for one and only one to be alive. What trickery is this in thinking you can alter on our deal? Yelled Kyuubi, who was beyond furious at this moment, as he paced his cage with Naruto and Sesshomaru standing in front of the large cage. It was not my suggestion to spare a second Uchiha amongst the dead clan, but rather the Slayer himself wished it. He felt she would be the exception to being killed given the fact she has a condition that prevents her from having any more children, said Sesshomaru, since it was only fair to give the Demon Fox Lord the information. Can she activate her Sharingan eyes? Said Kyuubi, curiously, frowning at slightly or what Naruto thought was considered frowning. No. From my understanding, the Uchiha women in the clan cannot call upon that power like the males do and were only used mostly for breeding stock, said Sesshomaru, as he found out this from old Fire Shadow. Oh, that's where you're wrong, my fellow Demon Lord. The Uchiha women can indeed activate the Sharingan eyes, but they do it a little differently. In fact, the only Uchiha female ever to activate those accursed eyes was none other than Madara's own eldest daughter. However, the way she unlocked it was different from the way a normal male Uchiha does it, said Kyuubi, seeing the shock on Naruto's face while Sesshomaru raised an eyebrow to indicate his surprise. How? Said Sesshomaru, wondering how the woman could activate her Sharingan since he would have to report it to the Hokage. Quite simple, really. While a male Uchiha brings out the Sharingan to the surface via near-death experiences or intense anger, Uchiha women must feel the exact opposite of that, and by doing so would result in a rather potent set of Sharingan eyes, said the Kyuubi, grinning viciously at the two before him. How would Sasuke's mom achieve the opposite? Said Naruto, since he didn't really know the answer to that little riddle. I assume the kid hasn't had the talk yet, said Kyuubi, getting a shake of the head. No, by Sesshomaru. He's still too young to know that, so keep it simple, said Sesshomaru, since he felt the boy did not need to know about such things yet. Very well. You, Naruto, while Uchiha males must feel pain of the flesh, the females of the Uchiha clan needed to feel pleasure of the flesh, and before you ask me, I'm not going to tell you anything else until you're old enough to figure it out. Though I will say this for the woman: if she can't activate the eyes, her husband must not have been very active in helping her unlock her bloodline, said Kyuubi, laughing at what he said and the hidden meaning behind it. Huh? Said Naruto, scratching his head before looking at Sesshomaru, who let out a sigh of frustration. Sesshomaru could only wonder if Inuyasha was having better luck with Rin in learning such adult things if she asked. It's something that I will explain to you when you are older, Naruto, said Sesshomaru, who shot the Kyuubi a glare that told the fox to not push his luck again. Back to the matter at hand. You said this female Uchiha couldn't use her Sharingan eyes, correct? Make sure it stays that way and make sure she keeps that Uchiha runt of hers in line. Despite this technicality, the deal is fulfilled and I will assist my vessel in getting stronger to exact my vengeance on that accursed Uchiha Madara, said Kyuubi before retreating back to its cell to slumber. Easier said than done. The guy is back after what happened and they worship him like he's a god, said Naruto, frowning at the Uchiha being praised for surviving something after running away like a coward. Don't worry about it, Naruto. In time they will see the truth one way or another, said Sesshomaru, as the two exited the mindscape. Namikaze Estate training grounds. Some time later, Naruto was training with Guy again when Lee came to his home to learn from this part-time sensei of the blonde juggernaut. Lee was shocked and in awe at Naruto's skills with the taijutsu specialist, who had to agree if only slightly on the man's choice of clothes, and yet the boy wondered if he could wear something like the man as well. Hey Lee, I see you made it, said Naruto while fighting Guy in the spar. Yes, I asked Hyuga Neji about you and said that if I wished to progress further in being a shinobi I should listen to your advice, said Lee, seeing Naruto get sent on the defensive by Guy before pushing back against the taijutsu master. Good call on his part. Hey Guy-sensei, can we stop sparring for a bit so you can meet my new friend from today, said Naruto, since he wanted the shinobi to spend some time with Lee today rather than himself. Very well, Naruto. I see you have progressed well and your flames of youth are quite strong in the progression of your growing skills. Now let's see what new student I can work with today, said Guy, giving a thumbs up, which made Naruto's sweat drop, and the blonde wondered if the man knew he was as weird as his fashion sense. Probably not. So for the next few hours Guy heard Lee's problem and wished to overcome it by using Naruto's suggestion of focusing on taijutsu in order to make his weakness into a very powerful strength. Guy was more than willing to take Lee on as a student along with Naruto, which in itself would prove useful for both, as the two could be sparring partners, and progress even faster. Lee even got to meet with Sesshomaru, who understood the boy's desire to become stronger despite his limitations, as Inuyasha had done so for years when surviving against many half and full-blooded demons, Sesshomaru himself included. To that end, Sesshomaru welcomed Lee to the Namikaze estate and told him that he was allowed to come back for more training at the estate. Of course, the demon lord had set a single stipulation that the boy's skills must show that they have increased noticeably throughout his time spent training, and that any form of lapse in it would result in Lee not coming back to the house until further notice. It was a tough pill to swallow, but Lee wouldn't, and couldn't give up this chance to get stronger in order to prove he wasn't the loser everyone thought he was at the academy. He accepted the stipulation. 4 years later. Okay, everyone settle down as I read off the top 3 students of this year's graduating class, said Iruka, who had spent the time of watching many of genin to be in his class grow into fine shinobi potentials, with the exception of a few fangirls here and there that slipped through the cracks. When Iruka first met Naruto, he was a little angry at the blonde considering the fox killed his parents, but after the Hokage spoke to the teacher privately, things were cleared up, and decided to judge the boy on his actions rather than what was inside of him. The boy was well-mannered, though there were a few unexplained incidents that made him be wary of Naruto should he be angered. During the second year at the academy, someone in the upper class had managed to get hands on some poison from one of their parents, who worked at the hospital, and tried to poison the fox vessels as well as Hinata's food at lunch. The said boy was later sent to the hospital after Naruto force-fed the poisoned food down his throat, putting him in critical condition. The parents of the child were later sent to Ibiki to find out why they gave the boy such a powerful poison and what other things they told their son. As for Hinata herself, she was forever grateful to Naruto when he had stopped her when she was about to eat the poison-laced food, and in doing so found herself developing strong feelings for the blonde. Hitomi and Hiyashi were pleased with Naruto with how he had saved her and how he delivered poetic justice to the stupid child that dared do such an act. So much in fact that Hiyashi asked that Naruto become Hinata's bodyguard when Neji could not after he graduated, which the blonde accepted with honor, and made poor Hinata faint as such upon hearing the news. Now as it stood, both Naruto and Hinata stood as the top students of their class next to one Uchiha Sasuke, who felt the world owed him everything it held. Iruka wished the boy had not received the deck of cards given to him at the hands of his older brother, but the academy teacher saw no reason for the boy to simply believe that he needed to be better than everyone else, and hoped that Sasuke would make friends for support. If Sasuke is pissed now, just wait until after he finds out the results of the ranking for the students right before the final exam test, thought Iruka, seeing the boy was brooding in the corner while Naruto sat with Hinata a few rows higher and Kiba behind them several more rows up, trying to burn a hole in Naruto's head via pointless glaring. The Inuzuka boy had yet to let go of his hate for Naruto, and like the Uchiha had stayed with the boy throughout the 4 years since they entered the academy. There had been several altercations between the two, but not so serious as to get their respective parents involved in this. "Hey Hinata-chan, after all our classes are over, you want to head over to my house and hang out or train?" said Naruto, who was excited about tomorrow's graduation exam. "Sure Naruto-kun, I would love that," said Hinata, knowing that her father and mother would be busy running the clan and would not mind if she was with Naruto since they trusted him completely with her. "Okay class, today we announce the records for who our top 5 students are," said Iruka, seeing everyone waiting to hear the news. "Now is my chance to prove that I am superior to all these fools, just like Itachi did with his class," thought Sasuke, smirking at his claim to fame in Konoha's academy history. In 5th place, we have Inuzuka Kiba, due to his test scores not being as high as other, said Iruka, hearing the boy scoff at that since he felt his strength came from physical work rather than mental. "As if brains could overpower my Inuzuka clan brawn," thought Kiba, since he felt that he was invincible. In 4th place, we have Aburame Shino, due to him doing better on his test scores than Kiba, said Iruka, seeing the bug using boy nod his head, though his insect already spied on the papers in Ayuka's hands, already knowing the results. "The Uchiha will not like this one bit," thought Shino, his bugs telling him to be wary of the Uchiha as he is not to be trusted. In 3rd place, is Haruno Sakura for her book smarts and her perfect test scores along with her average form in the standard taijutsu taught here, said Iruka, seeing the pink-haired girl cheer in the back next to Ino, who pouted because she had failed, gotten an average C on her test since she forgot to study, and had to have a major cram session the night before. In 2nd place, is Hyuga Hinata for her near-perfect scores as well as her well-above-average taijutsu, though coming from the Hyuga clan I'm not surprised, said Iruka, seeing Naruto and Sasuke frown slightly since they seemed to spot what Iruka knew they would hate, but for Sasuke would be even worse. "Uchihas were never ones to share things. Is he doing what I think he's doing?" thought Naruto and Sasuke at the same time before eyeing each other with disdain since neither boy liked the other one. And finally, the Rookie of the Year at Konoha's Shinobi Academy is both Namikaze Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke, before sending an apologetic smile towards Naruto, who he knew would accept this. If it wasn't for the Shinobi Council members like Danzo and the Sandame's 2 former teammates, Iruka would have gladly named Naruto Rookie of the Year and Hinata in 2nd place, but the council wanted to inflate the Uchiha's ego into thinking he was getting stronger in Konoha. They were possessed by the fear that if Sasuke wasn't given everything he desired by the people of Konoha, then he would leave to head somewhere that he could. The last thing the council wanted was an Uchiha clan in Kumo or possibly in Iwa, so the only thing they believed was best was to fatten the Uchiha's ego up in order to keep him loyal to Konoha. They also said it was to keep the demon in line, but Iruka didn't buy that at all. "What, Iruka-sensei, how can you allow that trash be with Sasuke-kun? Everyone with half a brain knows that the Uchiha clan is superior to the Namikaze clan," said Sakura, being the fangirl that she was. "Sakura, it was not my call in the end, and if you rechecked Konoha's history books, not a single Uchiha has become the Hokage yet. As for the Namikaze clan, I believe a certain 4th Hokage would disagree with your outburst, and I believe his son several rows away from you would too," said Iruka, folding his arms and frowned at Sakura. "Damn right. Also note that no Uchiha has stopped a demon lord either. So if anyone here wants to try and compare the Namikaze clan to the Uchiha clan, you better get a long ruler because my family goes way beyond them," said Naruto, glaring at those that would try to put the Uchiha clan higher up than the Namikaze clan. "Iruka-sensei, I refuse to have this inferior person share my spot as Rookie of the Year," said Sasuke, while Naruto scowled deeply at the Uchiha and even allowed some demonic chakra to channel into his mouth to show his slightly sharper fangs to intimidate him. "Well, if that is how you feel, then I propose a match between the two of you, and the one who wins that match will be named Rookie of the Year, with the loser becoming the dead last of the academy, allowing a certain Nara to rise above his family's status quo," said Iruka, turning to see a sleeping Nara Shikamaru, who upon hearing his name during his time asleep flipped off Iruka. "Fine with me since I'm not going to lose. An Uchiha never loses," said Sasuke, walking out of the classroom with Naruto following along with everyone else, since this fight was too big for it to be held in the classroom. "Tell that to the Shoden, who kicked Uchiha Madara's carcass all over the Valley of the End," said Kyuubi inside Naruto's head, having heard the boy's arrogant words. Once outside in the sparring area, Sasuke got into his own taijutsu stance while Naruto just stood still with his hands at his sides in a very confident-like manner. Sasuke was by all means insulted as well as infuriated by this and wanted the boy before him to be badly beaten before him while whimpering like a dog. His mother kept telling him not give in to his hatred of Itachi or to be arrogant, as it was what led to the fall of the clan in the first place. But Sasuke couldn't let go of such things, and what was more is that he believed that everyone that stood in his way of revenge should be removed one way or another. "What are you waiting for, Uchiha? If you believe you are as all-powerful as you claim to be, then by all means me, and show everyone how powerful you are," said Naruto, clearly preying on his opponent's arrogance and superiority complex. "Prepare to be dead last in both title and name Namikaze," said Sasuke, rushing forward with his arm cocked back to land on Naruto's face, only for the said boy to catch it and breaking the hand at the wrist before kicking him back. "If that's all the skill you've got, then you might as well just give up before I go ahead embarrass you in front of every one of your loyal fans," said Naruto, seeing several of the would-be fangirls that would try to become shinobi with them soon. "Screw you, loser. I don't care if your old man was the Yondaime. At least my mother was an Uchiha while yours was some no-named whore," said Sasuke, smirking at the face of Naruto, whose eyes widened at that remark, and the Uchiha expected to charge blindly at him. Hinata herself was now leaking out killer intent at the Uchiha, wishing that her morals as a Hyuga would slip this once so she could gentle fist the arrogant prick back to the era of the Shoden. As for Naruto, he held no love for his late mother, other than the simple fact that she had brought him into this world, but after leaving him to fend for himself rather than try to make an attempt at raising him, cut off any form of emotional ties to her. Still, a part of his heart felt that because of that remark it dishonored his father as well, and as much as he wished his mother would burn for her betrayal to his old man, he unfortunately had to defend her honor along with the Namikaze name. It didn't mean he had to like it though. "So you want to go along the lines of family Sasuke? All right, I'll play dirty if it's only just this once to make you angry. While I have no love for my mother for betraying my father given his dying wish for me, at least my father was considered a hero throughout the world and wasn't some stuck-up, limp-dicked, power-desiring asshole descended from a line of power-hungry assholes. So all things considered, Uchiha, just because you think that your clan is better than mine simply due to having family left is a plus for you. It's not," said Naruto, raising his right hand, and after channeling some demonic chakra into it made them seem like he had claws making a cracking sound as the arms extended. "Oh, and why is that?" said Sasuke, smirking, as he got into his taijutsu stance again. "Because I can say for a fact that no Namikaze ever killed off our clan while yours." "Well, I think Itachi explained everything in that manner, didn't he?" said Naruto, his blue eyes flashing red with slits before rushing forward faster than Sasuke could see, and in a mere instant was sent flying into the academy wall, hard leaving a spider-webbed impact-sized crater. Everyone with the exception of Hinata was in shock at what just happened, as they saw Sasuke sliding to the ground with a large chunk of his face covered in blood, and when they turned to Naruto they found out why. Naruto's clawed hand was covered in flesh, skin, and muscle tissue of his Uchiha of an opponent. As for Naruto's facial expression, it was like looking at stone face filled with seriousness, and of someone that didn't take crap from anyone, clan or no clan. "Well, that settles that," thought Iruka, knowing that the two councils were going to be upset by this and slightly at him for allowing this. But the Uchiha did demand it, and that in itself would no doubt the only reason he kept his job as a teacher at the academy. After all, who was he, a simple Chunin school teacher, to say no to the simple demand of the near heir to the Uchiha clan? Tell the Uchiha he has two choices. Either he simply admits defeat or that a dead last beat him, said Naruto, knowing that neither one would sit well with Sasuke, but as he walked with Hinata back inside it was clear to everyone about what just happened. Regardless of whether or not he was declared the winner of that fight, Naruto didn't give a damn.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.